Meeting to order. Today is Thursday, March 14th. The time is 6:30 p.m. We'll start with the roll call. Carol Brisiak.
Here.
Cindy Christensen.
Here.
Jason Henderson. Here. William Hopping. Here. Joseph Areno. Here. Jack Reinchecke. Present. Kevin Seiler is here. Also welcome Patrick Driscoll joining us today. Also would like to welcome our neighbors who have joined us in person or online. We have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the minutes. They're in the packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as provided?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a couple corrections.
Okay.
On page 1, line 21, Columbine Square, the word Columbine needs to be spelled correctly.
It's column 9 square.
What's Columbine Square?
It's column 9 square.
Oh, column 9? Column 9. Okay.
Didn't get the B.
And on page 3, line 41, I'm thinking what this should read is so, comma, you talk through instead of talk though. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And on the last page, line number 1, I think it's just missing a little punctuation. What we can do, comma, I would like to see the boundaries to make it read a little bit better. And that's it.
motion for those changes?
So
Second? Second. Discussion? So on the amendment, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. On the original motion to accept the minutes as corrected, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. This brings us to the first session of public comment. Anybody in attendance that wishes to come forward and share any thoughts or concerns they have may do so at this point. We can ask you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and that you state your name for the record at the beginning of your time. Is there anybody who wishes to come forward?
I have 2.
Okay. Sure.
I'm here to talk tonight about,
Please.
Linda Knufiki, 4th District. Hold on 1 second. So the Columbine Urban Renewal Plan was passed in February 17, 2015, prior to the March 3rd election, which limited the use of eminent domain and required a vote for modifications to an urban renewal plan. The urban renewal law then changed, particularly with HB 151348. And here are some of the changes that were made. They added some board members, defined the modification of plans. They described involvement of taxing entities, talked about eminent domain, and in terms of board members, right now you guys are the board, and for the future, any kind of future project or modifications, you get 10 appointed by the mayor. You can expand the board to 13, which requires a Board of County Commissioners appoint a member from the county. The school board also appoints a member, and special districts appoint a member by agreement, and you can add more members. In the future, any modification or changes in the plans have changed. The council, in existing plans, they used to determine what a substantial modification is. For any future project or plan, the council is taken out of the picture, and the urban renewal law clarifies the definition of substantial modification. The law defines substantial modifications to include a change in land area, land use, design, building requirements, timing, or procedures. Any modification or alteration must undergo the urban renewal process, which means doing the condition survey report, creating and adopting new plans, public hearings, financial impact reports, approvals, et cetera, et cetera. The list is long. And modification includes any changes to properties as listed in the appendix of the existing urban renewal plan. Involvement of the taxing entities, the council has Resolution 88, which requires LIFT and council to get approval from taxing entities. And remember, Arapahoe County has not provided approval. So HB 1348 requires an agreement with the taxing entities for types and limits of tax revenues. And it defines what should be included in the agreement with the taxing entities, and it requires mediation if there are issues unresolved by the taxing entities. It also sets timeframes, notifications, definitions, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the LIFT board should figure out how this all fits in the picture with Resolution 88. The vote of the public is required for a change. The existing plan, you don't have to go through a vote for any modification. According to Section 64.5 of the Littleton City Charter, you must take it to a vote. So what does this all mean? Any changes, additions, modifications will trigger a whole new process. You have to start from the beginning. You need an executive director just to
your time.
Okay.
Linda, is there much more to your presentation?
This is it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Pam?
I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. So first I want to thank Linda for that great summary of the new law and how it affects our city and this authority. I wanted to talk about the breakfast with City Council tomorrow. I noticed that there's a discussion of LIFT or urban renewal engagement with the comprehensive plan or the Envision project. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. And one is, it seems that we have people in power who talk about the market and that our plan has to respond to the market, and that's a fallacy. Plans do not respond to transient markets. We can respond to analysis that shows long-term trends, but when a city plan in service of the people, long-term, responds to a transient market, that's almost the definition of a questionable process at best. The plan is driven by long-term drivers, and the transient market is not the driver. So one note there, because some people will talk about that. The other issue is that obviously the market right now is distorted and skewed by years of a lack of good regulation in the real estate market, which has been pointed out by many people. So the market right now responds to very high profit projects. The real market, the demand is for affordable housing, and most people, income inequity is expanding in America, not decreasing. And the demand for housing is greatest among the lowest incomes and the medium incomes now. So that's the market that the city in service of the people should respond to. So I just wanted to put those two thoughts in your minds, that plans do not change for transient markets. In the market right now, what developers talk about and serve is a high profit segment, but it is not the demand of the people. And that's what the city should serve, and that's what LIFT needs to serve. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, we will close this session of public comment. Financial report. The financial report is included. Tiffany could not attend today, so we'll hold off accepting this report until.
Again, I'll move we table the report until Ms. Hooton is present.
Correct. We're going to have a further discussion about that later. So. Okay.
Second. You made a motion.
Did you make a motion?
Yes, I did.
Well, I was not even gonna, but we can, yeah. Okay, we'll table it. The second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. Committee reports. I don't think do we have any committee reports right now? I'm going to the study session later to talk about the lawyer. Okay. Unfinished business. So the unfinished business I had has to do with the website. And sorry I didn't get to talk to this earlier. So doing some research on some things, went through the website and I have some concerns that would like to see addressed. I'm not sure whether Cindy, you need to go back in to do this or work with Carol to get some of this stuff. But these are these things are on the website and are the concerns. So the first one I found was from our April 13, 17 meeting. The minutes aren't with the meeting, with that particular meeting for that meeting. Yeah, let me back up. What we've been doing, what was that? Oh, that was, what the hell? Oh, how'd that get in there? Anyways, thank you. Yeah, I already paid it, thank you. Most of the meetings, the date of the meeting happened, the approved minutes are listed with that meeting. And I just want to be consistent with that. The meetings for the April 13th meeting were listed under our May 11th meeting. So just kind of see those be consistent there. The June 8th The minutes are still in the draft mode and not indicating that they are what was approved by the board. Again, consistency, we're scheduled to meet monthly. There were several months there where, for one reason or another, our meetings were canceled. Just would like that reflected for record on the website that they were canceled, not that there's just nothing there at all. 10-12, meetings are listed on the wrong session, and I must have copied that wrong. But anyway, the 2/8 meetings, the February 8th meetings are listed for draft. It's listed as draft because we didn't meet for a couple months. We didn't approve them until February 8th, and they are still draft. And then there is not a link to the video recording of the meeting for that. 12/14, again, the meeting was canceled. January 11th was canceled. February 8th, minutes are missing. The link is missing to our video. And then that's all on the page that says meetings prior to March 2018. So everything that's listed on that page after our February meeting should be deleted because now it's duplicated in the next page in the setup we have there.
Say that again?
So there are several meetings after our February 18 meeting that are listed on the page that says meetings prior to March 2018. So the March 2018 meeting and all the documents are listed there, along with 3 or 4 more. When they're on the next page, which is the page for, actually it might be, we can just pull this up real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me do that. So we have the 2 tabs for the meeting. So everything from before March 2018, we go there and we see that we have the August meeting, July meetings, the June meetings. So all these meetings after February of 18 are duplicated on this page in the grid here that we set up. So I'm just asking that we probably just clean it up and just remove those because they're already listed on that tab and kept current. So then we're missing for the March 8th meetings, we don't have the approved minutes yet. Same with April, May, June, July. The September 13th meetings, and also the April 9th, those both should be converted to PDF instead of a Word doc, just so that they're locked and somebody can't manipulate them. Not that he could download them back to the website, but just somebody could manipulate them for reasons that wouldn't be good. So just, I'm not sure where we are with the approved minutes, and if Cindy has them all. and what we need to do to get this kind of just tightened up a little bit.
I'll have to look and see if I should have all the 18
Okay.
ones. The ones going back, I'm not sure that we'd have to get them.
Okay. Does anybody else see anything else with the website?
The only other thing I'm working with Eric on is to make sure that on the front page, as you come into the website, it lists the next meeting date. Because it's been taking some time to get that updated, so we're figuring out if that's something we can just make sure that it gets updated automatically on there. So I'm talking to Eric about that.
Okay.
have sent these minutes to Wendy, and I always send them in a Word format. I usually get the draft minutes and then another, and then they do whatever. I mean,
Okay.
we don't have our access to our own website. It's all done by the city. So if she's missing some information, they're all available.
Okay. So will you check to see if, okay, and then we'll just figure out where we're
And I
missing.
can send to Cindy as well, so if there's something you're missing.
Yeah, I'll look and see
Okay.
what I've got, and then I'll look for the other ones.
Okay.
Are you interested in going back any further than that?
No, because I just went back to when I joined the board,
Okay.
and anything before that, there's nobody here that was part of that and wants to be held accountable, so I think that's good enough. I just kind of want to clean this up a little bit. I apologize that I didn't catch this stuff earlier. Again, it's just little housekeeping stuff and just make it a little bit cleaner. Okay. So, next thing we have is the resolution regarding postings of our public notices of our public meetings. Can I have a motion to accept this resolution number 1? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have a question. Sure.
Who's our legal counsel that'll sign this?
That would be the current city attorney that the city's retained.
Okay.
What was his name?
Ken
Feldman. Ken Feldman. Yeah. Oh. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I saw that it's on the agenda for tomorrow regarding legal representation, but would we need some kind of agreement with that attorney, noting that he's representing us?
I asked that question because we had Corey Hoffman firm when I first joined the board. There doesn't seem to have been any agreement between Lyft and Corey's firm at that time. I think we just piggybacked off of, I'm not sure where it came. No one seems to know where that came from. It doesn't seem that we need something at this point in time. We're just going out through the city's agreement. Carol.
I move to amend this resolution, section 1, in the 4th line, actually in the 3rd line at the end, delete the word "and." So it reads, the Littleton Center, Bemis Library, the local municipal court, and the Lyft website. It's the same change that we made to it a year ago.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment?
Not sure I understand. It says the Lyft website, line 3 there? Is that?
I want to make sure that our meetings are posted on the Lyft website. I would think that if anybody wants to know what we're doing, they ought to be able to go to our website and see
But
our
it says that,
meetings.
I think. It says, except where publication in newspapers specifically required by state statute, Term publication, publisher, publish,
Tell me what
shall
you
mean posting on the LIF website.
Yeah, it said right
And a
there.
minimum of 2 others.
In the third paragraph, third line, or second line going into third line, it says right there, shall mean posting on the LIF website, it's already in there.
It's already there.
Where are you? It'd be helpful if you tell me where you're reading from.
Right here.
Okay,
Shall mean posting.
okay, yeah, that's a whereas. It needs to be down in the body. If we're listing the places it's going to be posted, we say the city's website, the library, the city center, the courthouse, and I believe it's important to go ahead and list the LIFT website along with all the other places that we're posting.
Where are you, Carol?
Oh, in section 1,
Oh, okay.
I don't see a problem with that. That seems to make sense.
Yeah, and it should be up, not just in the recitals, but also in the
It ought to be a cut and paste then if we're going to modify that. Because it is in the whereas. They should just both read the same. It's worded differently, but I don't have an objection to that.
but the whereas is very different from section 1.
Well, what I'm saying is they should be the same. We want to make sure they're posted in the same places.
I think that the whereas just states sort of the bare minimum requirement, and then section 1 is us going above and beyond that requirement, saying that it will be posted in all these places, not just a minimum of 2 among these options.
So what places are missing in one that are not, that are in the first one?
It's not that they're missing from the first one, it's that the whereas clause is just defining published and at minimum 2 of the following. And then the second one is saying we're going to post in all of these places, which is more than just 2 of those areas, but all of those areas.
Okay.
Is it just,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is the same change we made to it last year.
I understand, I just, as I look at this, it's just being redundant.
Well, I don't know. The reason I think it might not be redundant is we designate the City of Littleton website, which is very general, and then there's a direct link on the homepage, bulletin boards, okay, and then the addresses. And I think what Carol is recommending is then we just go South to Tourist Street, Littleton Municipal Courthouse, 26 Littleton Boulevard, comma, and the Littleton website, comma. Which then says for sure that we're going to put it on the LIFT website, as opposed to I apologize, on the LIFT website as opposed to the Littleton City, which is just uncontroversial. It's
And maybe go ahead, since they've added the www for the city's website, go ahead and put the www.lift.org for after the LIFT website.
I think we need to consider who posted. I mean, the city actually does the posting. Are we going to confuse if we have a different standard than all the other boards and commissions in the city?
I
don't
I
want
think
to,
the
I'm
question
not trying
is-
to be difficult. I just want to make sure that it's properly posted and we aren't creating a conflict between the two. I'm fine with wherever it's posted.
What kind of conflict are you suggesting that we
Well,
would be
because we're
creating?
going above and beyond in the second one, does the city go above and beyond on everything? In other words, what we're adding LIFT's website, and a lot of boards and commissions have websites, or they have a page on Littleton's website, but I don't know that it necessarily gets posted there. So that I just don't want to.
We might be going above and beyond other commissions, but I think as long as we have a separate website that somebody might go to instead of the City of Littleton website, then it makes sense to have it there. And I know that that might be the case.
And I don't disagree with the philosophy there. I'm just saying who's going to make sure that's happening so that we aren't out of compliance with our own edict here.
Right.
I'm
It
talking
sounds
about
like
logistics, not
our
the philosophy.
Right. And our the discussion earlier was there seems to be some challenges with that.
Yeah.
Do we?
It's the current practice. So, and yeah, I would say if we're going above and beyond, the above and beyond is posting it on the city's website. We are a separate entity, And we operate just like the South Metro Housing Authority. They have their own website, and they have their own page, and if you go on their website, it lists when, and their meeting announcements as well. So they're very different from the Fine Arts Board or the Planning Commission in how we function. And we have a website. If somebody wants to know what we're doing, that's the first place, logically, that you would go.
I'm not arguing about that. I'm just saying that we need to be aware of the logistics of it, and it is seamless. I know we're different in a lot of ways, but the public doesn't give a rip. They care about where they find stuff. So if we need to put it on our own website, I don't argue that. I'm just saying we need to have a mechanism in place to make sure that that happens. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and we do.
What is
It
that?
may not work well.
Well,
That's the mechanism.
that's what was raised earlier when we were looking at the
Yeah,
website. That seems to be a challenge. I mean, Cindy, can you shed some light on what the challenge has been?
To get the upcoming meeting on
Yes.
there. It's basically, I've talked to Eric and it's basically that I have to remind Eric to put it on there every month.
Okay.
And it doesn't get posted quite as fast as it should be. So I talked to Eric this last month about that.
Okay.
And I think that we're gonna be able to get it changed because I think we'll come up with a mechanism by which it just automatically updates.
Okay.
So after this meeting, for instance, it will go to the April meeting.
Okay.
And we'll figure out, Eric and I are gonna figure out how that gets updated
Okay.
automatically, so we don't have to worry about
See,
it.
that'd be great, because I frankly have trouble with 2 out of 3, because you could put a different 2 every month. You know, what good does that do you?
That's
You
why
know,
section 1 is important.
Yeah, but and section 1 does over-define that, but I just want to make sure the mechanism is there, like Joe alluded to. That we have consistent postings, so people who want to have information about what we're doing know where to go and look. It's just a transparency issue.
I would put on a future agenda item, it would be really to our benefit if we had access to our own website. And I think that would be something that legal counsel could help us with. The city's very reluctant, and there was a time when the website was controlled by this board. And then when they lost their executive director and the marketing people had been doing it, then the city came in to fill in. But it is our website, and we should have that responsibility. So just for a future agenda.
Okay. So is the first of all, the URL, as I understand correctly, is for Lyft, is www.littleton-lyft.org, is that right?
I think it's .org.
I believe, and I don't have a smartphone.
No, I mean, I could go
We'll
back.
find out real quick.
I was like, I'm thinking, I should know this.
It just comes automatically, you know.
Yeah,
You
it
search
does.
for it. And
I know, it's like, boom, it comes up and.
We have a new IT director, maybe they could help us out with that,
Yeah.
piece of that. Have you met with them, Cindy, or?
No, I
Her?
haven't.
Yeah.
I've just been working with Eric, and so
Okay.
we'll,
Well, it's not loading under,
Because I think we're all after the same thing. We're just trying to figure out how to do it.
If you don't have, actually, he just brought it up a second ago. I can find it.
What,
Here
yeah.
it is, it's lift-littleton.org.
Lift-littleton.org. So
It is org.
So the sentence would be, the suggestion would be after Datura Street to delete the and go.
Section 1.
In section 1, after Datura Street, delete the and, go the Littleton Municipal Courthouse, 2069 West Littleton Boulevard, period, comma, and the Lyft website, comma, www.lyft-littleton.org, comma, and then continue the sentence.
Website,
Yep.
comma, www.lift-littleton.org, comma,
Yep.
as the locations where all notices required to be posted concerning open meetings shall be posted.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? All All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. To the original motion to adopting the resolution number 1 as amended, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. So next, we're going to have a study session about this after the meeting, but it is the intent that at our next meeting that we will have amended bylaws to adopt. So for our bylaws, we have to announce at the meeting prior, so I'm just making that announcement at this point. Next is meeting minutes discussion. So the minutes for our meetings have been challenging, it seems like, for some time, and it's challenging for a board member to be trying to take the minutes and so forth, and be part of the discussion that's at hand. In reviewing how we got to where we are with our meetings, this came up about 3 years ago when most of us were new to the board, and it was basically that Carol wished to have more detailed minutes, and she took that on. At this point, Carol no longer wants to do that. So I want to go back to where we were before with action item minutes, and the recordings of our meetings would fill in where the action items do not. So that's the direction I feel we should go at this point. The next thing is a recording secretary. We don't, Carol resigned her position a couple meetings ago. The city has indicated that they will provide a recording secretary from the city clerk's office. It may change from meeting to meeting, so I would like to entertain a motion that we appoint a recording secretary, that someone from the office of the city clerk will act as our recording secretary.
I move that we appoint somebody from the city clerk's office to act as a recording secretary.
Second.
Any discussion?
A couple of questions.
Sure.
Number 1, our cooperative agreement with the city does not require them to provide such recording secretary.
Correct.
Number 2, is this going to be gratis from the city, or are we going to have to pay for this individual?
At this point, they are willing to provide that as a service to Lyft.
Do we not then need a change to our cooperative agreement?
We will have that discussion with the city.
I assume tomorrow.
Yes.
And if it changes from time to time, this is my third concern, who is going to make, because I think the website is an example of where a recording secretary could really assist making sure this stuff gets posted. But if they keep handing the baton to various people, how will we make sure that the baton is handed off and that the work does get done?
The indication I have is that there will be one person tasked with doing that from the city clerk's office. There may be occasion where that person is not available and somebody else be asked to step in. But the intent is that there will be one person designated from that office to be here at these meetings.
And our bylaws indicate we may appoint a recording secretary from within the board. We could appoint somebody and that could be their job, just to make sure these things are getting posted. And that would be a pretty simple recording secretary job, but it would vest that responsibility with one person to make sure we're covering that base, if that makes you feel more comfortable. I think the city does a a good job with all the other boards and commissions and council. I think our resident council member here could vouch for that. So,
Is he taking notes?
but your point's well taken. But I think I'd be comfortable going forward with that.
Well, I am sort of comfortable. It's not the major issue. The issue is that, to me, is that we've got some continuity and that the city will do this, even though it's not in our cooperative agreement, and that the individual or an individual will appear because we get sporadic attendance from the other city employees, and that I know our bylaws say that we may appoint it says shall right now. If we were to go with the new bylaws as approved, it would say may. So but it doesn't necessarily come from the board. It's just like the attorney. We're going to appoint an attorney from the board. We probably will not appoint. My recommendation was not to appoint an attorney or a recording secretary from the board. It's simply to obtain one from somewhere. And it sounds like if the city's willing to pay for it, pay for the position, and we get the service that we need, sounds like a good deal.
I think we can always revisit that and change that, at a later time. I think we should try this, and I think it'll give, again, I think the main thing, concern we've had is that, if there's a recording secretary among the board, they cannot, if they're doing all the duties of being a recording secretary, they cannot really participate in discussions that we're having. And I think that has caused some of the concerns that we've had with the accuracy of the minutes from time to time. It's just that, when you're trying to write something down, yet pay attention to what's going on, and you've got thought, I want to bring up this concern, you're juggling 3 balls at once, it's kind of, something can be dropped. Carol?
The accuracy of the minutes can always be checked by approval prior to, or by amending prior to approval. I don't think that's the issue. And the reason I started taking minutes is if you go back and look, you'll find months and months where there were no minutes at all. I wanted something to document what was going on. But you had a council that changed the term of what the minutes mean, and because they determined the video was going to become the official record of the meeting, minutes were no longer taken. It was never anything this body determined on their own. It was imposed on them because there are people in this building who think of this group just like any other board and commission. So whatever council did, everybody was supposed to follow, but this body never made that decision. And we're bound by the open meetings law to keep minutes. And we don't have them for years or months. So I stepped up, and because of the years worth of minutes that are available going back to the very beginning of time, that really tell this story and understand what urban renewal is about in Littleton, I thought it was important to have that continuity. Now, I don't have a problem with action minutes as long as we put some meat on the bones, but if it's going to be a motion, and who made the motion, and who voted on the motion, and that's it. That's not good information. And to rely on the video is not a fail-safe. We've had instances where there's nothing that comes out of the video, and the backup didn't work either. And if you've ever watched them, they're not always easy to understand. The sound, the audio, particularly in this room, is horrible. But I will go back to our bylaws, because our bylaws say that the recording secretary shall keep the records of the authority, including the accounting records. The recording secretary shall act as the secretary of the meetings, record all votes, shall keep a record of the proceedings of the authority, and shall perform all duties incident to this office, shall keep the seal of the authority, and shall have the power to affix such seal to all contracts and instruments. Recording secretary shall be appointed by the authority. And our bylaws say that we may appoint, we don't have to. But there's a whole lot of else that goes along with being a recording secretary. And we're saying our recording secretary is going to be any particular, or no one in particular, really. So I think if we're going to do so, we need to have somebody who is named and responsible by the bylaws to do what they're supposed to do. Now, if that person ends up delegating, someone else that comes to this meeting because whoever can't, that's okay. But we need, in my opinion, to name an individual to be the recording secretary and to fulfill the duties of the bylaws or change the bylaws.
If I may, if we're going to do that, and I don't disagree, I think we'll need to amend or withdraw or kill my motion and go back to the city clerk and ask who are you throwing into this? And then we come back with a motion at the next meeting nominating that person. And it would be, because we can't get the name now.
Correct. I think they have somebody in mind, they just need to have a discussion with that individual,
Oh, my goodness.
It means we'll have to like survive.
And they may have had that discussion already, actually. This came out of a meeting I had.
Oh, sure, yeah. That would mean that we wouldn't get it done until after the next meeting, but at least then we would have a name. I mean, if that, it's not an altogether unreasonable idea to name the human. But what does it do to the motion that's on the floor? I don't know, and I guess it would vote down or something.
Let me ask, meeting protocols is on the agenda for tomorrow morning's meeting. This is not fluffed out at all, so we don't know what they have in mind. But would it be possible that that's part of it?
That is part of the discussion.
So
we
would
could
be
just,
best to
we
table it and see what
could
they
just
have in
table
mind?
it for now.
Yeah. I mean, if people agree with that, you could withdraw your motion and we could see what
something you can
happens
do?
tomorrow.
Yes, you can withdraw it.
If your second agrees.
I didn't second, but I have another point to make, if I might. Because it's been my experience in government that you do not designate a person, you designate an office. And in this particular case, to make the mechanism work, I would designate the city clerk's office to be the recording secretary. And it's simply because of the way you look at this. The appointed person could find another job, could be terminated for whatever reason. We have no control over it. But if we have an agreement with the city clerk's office to provide an individual, then that makes, it makes good sense for government business. I'll be bringing this up with the attorney's fee schedule as well. However, that's my concern, and and if I were to look at, if I remember the motion correctly, it says, well, somebody from the city clerk's office to be appointed as recording secretary. In that regard, what my feeling is, I would move to amend the motion to say we appoint the city clerk's office as the recording secretary.
I think that's a good amendment. And that also gets it done today.
Do you have a second on the amendment?
Second. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you had the first.
Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, so hearing none, we'll, on the amendment, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. On the original motion, which is to, as corrected, as amended, to appoint the Littleton's office of city clerk as our recording secretary. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Can we discuss the minutes, what we mean by action minutes, so that this person, whoever is, knows what their expectations are? Is it strictly motion and the votes?
It
or are there gonna be
is,
any-
it is what, can we have that discussion after, at our next meeting, after tomorrow's meeting? Because that's one of the agenda items, part of the agenda items to discuss with City Council.
Okay.
And their request to us.
It's good by me.
Okay. Brings us to the second session time for public comment. Anybody who wishes to come forward is welcome to do so at this point. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to within 3 minutes. Anybody wish to come forward? Linda?
I'm Linda Knufike of the 4th District. Looking at various issues to address, such as the constitution of board members, changes or modification to plan, involvement of the taxing entities, it all requires a formal process. You also have taking a plan to the voters, eminent domain and timeframes. I would discuss these matters sooner rather than later because it definitely would sneak up on you. For example, just to negotiate the types and limits of tax revenues, you need an executive director to work with each one of your taxing entities to do that because that's going to take a lot of work. And then my final recommendation is to obtain and follow legal advice. I think I would use only attorneys that specialize in urban renewal laws. After looking at some of the law, it just gets convoluted and crazy. And I think it's really important to have somebody that knows the law. And a city attorney doesn't necessarily have experience in the urban renewal laws. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward? Yeah.
I'm Chepburn, still in District 1, and I thought Linda's points were good, and I agree that there's a lot of just basic business on the agendas for this authority, but where is the learning about really dealing with applications? I think I've brought this up before, but you and we, the public, should be learning about what the specifics, ins and outs are, even at a high level. And none of that education has been occurring, and boy, it's past time to do that. I'm also going to reiterate, I think what I've said before, action minutes are not useful. They're bad, and video minutes are horrible. They are a horrible burden. They put the burden onto everybody who wants to go back and learn what happened. And that's the opposite of what good governance should do. Governance should make sure that if this is for the public, many people, then one person does effort and records it so that the many benefit from that work. That's a fundamental principle. So to say that the video is the minutes passes the burden onto every individual who wants to go back and look at something. It is appalling. That was a horrible decision by City Council. It was 4-3. Someday it will be reversed when we get the right council members. Until then, don't follow it. It's a bad thing to do. It's not useful to the people. And that should be your mission, to serve us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, we are supposed to have comment and reports as part of our agenda, and it's not on the agenda. And it appears that you have some information about the subject matter for the meeting tomorrow, and can you share some information? Because Bill's right, there's no fluff. We have no idea what the agenda items are for, and I like to be prepared for meetings, and I don't know how to prepare for this one without knowing what the subject matter is.
So there are basically 5 items on the agenda. One is meeting protocols. That there's, there is a council has indicated to me that they want consideration that we follow the same protocols that they and the other boards and commissions follow. They fully recognize that we do not have to by statute. The argument there is that we all serve the citizens. We say we all serve the same neighbors and citizens within the community, and they go and they want uniformity across that because it's easier that if we all are doing the same thing and behaving and conducting business in the same way, it looks very seamless. Because the average person, I for one, until I got on this board, did not understand the nuances between what urban renewal was and the other boards. You know, I have a better understanding, much better understanding today. And it's not that they're mandating this; they just see it as more of a consistency and uniformity across the city and who we serve. I mean, would you concur with that?
Yep.
Okay. Legal support. There are some concerns on whether there's a need for us to obtain or retain legal services right now, and they just want to discuss that in more detail and give their thoughts on that. The city loan, which we've talked about, that loan comes due in December of this year. I want to talk about what happens with that. Just do we pay it off? Do they want us to pay it? Do we extend it? Do we restructure it? Those things. You know, this is what we've been talking about for a little while now. How the comprehensive plan that the city is working on works with urban renewal and our work on LIFT, and just talking about how those dovetail together. And then what we go forward with LIFT and with projects, whether it's with the owners of Columbine Square, whether it's been some of the other things we've talked about, either setting up matching grants with the other property owners to improve their properties. We partner with the city in doing streetscapes, just having discussion on where they see the vision and where we should focus our efforts at.
And you indicated this is council, but I've never heard council talk about these issues. Could you be more specific?
Cindy and I met with Mayor Brinkman and the city manager a week or so ago, and in the other discussions I've had with Mayor Brinkman, these things have come up the last the 2 or 3 times I've talked to her. I assume she's talking on behalf and represents the thoughts within city council. Whether that's one-on-one she's having with individual members, or I don't think it's been talked about openly at a meeting, but I think they've had study sessions and other things, and just conversations between each other on where they see it. And I think she just represents the overall feel of where city council sees urban renewal in Littleton. That's fair.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything more on that? Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's regular session?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any opposed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Do we need to take a break before we go into study session? Okay, we'll go right into study session, and we'll start, we'll talk, the first thing, thank you, is to talk about the legal services contract with
I've always said Hamry, and no one's corrected me.
Hamre, Rodriguez, Ostrander, and Dingus.
Dingus, yeah.
Dingus. Dingus.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Okay, well, We have in front of us the proposed fee agreement. I will say that I did already volley back one change to them that I haven't heard back on, and that's to remove section E, which sends any disputes between Lyft and the attorneys to arbitration. And there I mirror the city's professional service agreement that they provided to me for reference, which would have disputes go to Arapahoe County Court and remove the fee shifting provision as well. Beyond that, I will say that I did look at the professional services agreement that Mark sent to me, and a lot of it I think is inapplicable for legal representation that can be terminated at any time. That doesn't involve a long ongoing project. It's more easy to change in this than a lot of contractors. So I am open to looking at more issues and getting more of those matters on there, but I'm not aware of what is important for us. So I only addressed the one that stuck out the most, which was arbitration and
Joseph, would you repeat that? I was figuring this out while we were talking.
So section E, I asked them to delete that and replace it with language that brings all disputes to Arapahoe County Court as opposed to arbitration. And then also notable is E includes section 5, which has an attorney fee shifting provision, which I removed. And again, I'm just mirroring the city's professional services template. A few notes. They have designated Richard Rodriguez would be the primary partner responsible for our representation. The legally qualified along with Don, who spoke with us, but he lives closer to us, so it made a lot more sense to them to have Rich involved. But certainly both could be involved if necessary at different points, though I think that's largely unnecessary. You wouldn't want to have two involved when you look at the way they go. But I did discuss fees with them, and specifically in light of the fact that in the first few months there will be a lot of ramp up in getting to know you, and there's also some uncertainty around the city's attorney, at least at the time. Mr. Kemp was just on leave and we didn't know what was going to happen there, so they agreed at least for the first 4 months, because there might be extra work and ramp up, they would give a break on the fees. So that's represented at a break of $25 per hour for each level. But they were very appreciative to have a particular individual or designated as the one who is authorized to engage, and so it's listed that the chairman as President Kevin Seiler would be responsible for any and all engagement that would be billed for. But yeah, like I said, I have not heard back yet about the change regarding arbitration, and I've opened other suggestions as well.
Joseph?
Yes.
To Jack's question that he raised earlier, is there language in here anywhere that says if somebody becomes unavailable or whatever, that we have some easy method besides an amendment to swap people out?
So, for example, if Rich Rodriguez was unavailable.
Yeah, well, unavailable permanently. It's like if Rich Rodriguez won the lottery and moved to the South Pacific.
Where do you want to go?
It's more likely for Kevin Seiler to win the lottery.
Not if Kevin doesn't play the lottery, which he fails to do on a regular basis.
But it's better than saying hit by a bus. But the question is, to the good point, this is a contract, so we would have to amend it if we wanted to change a term, unless there was something in here that made it maybe could be amended by mutual agreements. If we had to change out a percentage.
Something like, all right.
See, rather than the name of a person, I would like to see just the title, the chairman of the board. And if the chairman of the board is unavailable, the vice chairman can act.
Sure. The trouble is they all share the title partner when we're talking about Don versus Rich. So I think it's important to understand this is that the law firm is representing us. So this is an engagement with the law firm, and they're simply designating responsibilities in here that I believe can change without changing the agreement.
I think the deal is the second paragraph of the fee agreement, in which they want to designate the client as having a named individual.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
What page out?
It would be page 1 of the agreement, 1 of 5.
Thank you.
So for us designating the chair,
Chair.
Yeah.
The person so designated to act for the client is the chairperson of the authorities board, which is currently Kevin Seiler. I could ask them to get rid of it, but I'm comfortable as is because it appoints, in my view, it's appointing to the
It's
chair.
appointed, but it's saying right now, here's
Currently,
within that seat.
Right.
Which is the same as the city clerk's office, is
But-
the chair.
Right.
So should we not have language in there in case the chair cannot act, the vice chair?
Oh, I
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Well, and our bylaws cover that. Does that help? Because the bylaws
I
say
don't
that if
know,
he's
that's
not-
why I'm asking the question of
Yeah,
an
I don't know
attorney.
either.
I'm not the board's attorney.
But you have knowledge, special knowledge that the rest of us.
I think that the word currently does the work. However, I think your same point gets more interesting to my mind when it comes to naming the actual attorneys. And I have no objection to the naming as long as there was just a sentence in there saying that by mutual agreement, the parties could designate a successor.
Like, something that says if Mr. Rodriguez is not not able to serve in that role,
Yeah.
the person who will assume responsibility will be mutually agreed upon by the parties, or something, does
This
that?
could last 10 years.
It could, right. Carol?
I actually think we're covered. It says Richard Rodriguez will have primary responsibility for your representation and will utilize other law firm lawyers and legal assistants as believed appropriate in the circumstances. The law firm will provide legal counsel to you in accordance. So doesn't that cover us in case Richard's not going to be the one to be here?
I believe that it does, but if we're asking for a few things, it can't hurt to
I don't think
clarify
it's,
that.
it doesn't, because
It wouldn't void
I
it.
mean-
You're right, it wouldn't void the
it doesn't
agreement.
void it, it just says, it's just gonna make sure that everybody's comfortable with whoever the primary responsibility
Right,
is.
exactly.
If it's not going to be Mr. Rodriguez.
Right.
It just says, okay, Jim Smith is gonna step in, here's Jim Smith's qualifications. Are we all comfortable with that? So, before we get too much further in this, I want to back up a little bit, because since we kind of got left with this firm, kind of went back and looked at some things, and some of the stuff, I'm having a little bit of heartburn. And what the heartburn is this law firm is primarily, and especially Mr. Rodriguez's background, is in eminent domain. And my knowledge of the history of urban renewal in Littleton and some of the controversies that's been raised in the past where eminent domain has been thrown out there as a scare tactic. And I'm having a little bit of problem that we are hitching our wagon with a firm that is neck deep in that. So I guess I want to back up a little bit and say, there's only maybe 5 or 6 firms in the state that really know urban renewal and practice this day in and day out. Did you have any conversation with any of those firms through this process? And maybe you covered this in the past, and maybe I missed
came
it.
through, first it was a conversation with Alderman Bernstein, which has some experience, but is also primarily condemnation and eminent domain. And she gave me a list of referrals. One was Doug Whitland, who's primarily condemnation and eminent domain, but also does urban renewal. The other is Corey Hoffman's firm, and I just wrapped up a matter involving him where he was representing on eminent domain. And the third is Henry Rodriguez, that does have extensive experience in eminent domain, but again, that's not the primary practice, or not I wouldn't even say it's the main practice, certainly one of the significant practices that they have. But both Don and Rich, if I recall, were able to articulate a variety of different experiences with eminent domain or urban renewal that did not involve the use of eminent domain. I do think we would be hard-pressed because urban renewal so often does, fortunately or unfortunately, involve eminent domain, hard-pressed to find an attorney that is engaged with urban renewal that doesn't have eminent domain experience. I would note that just because an attorney has eminent domain experience, and I can think of examples for both Don and Rich, doesn't mean that they're representing the city's condemning property. Sometimes they're representing the property owners in the condemnation action. And I think Don gave us an example when he was representing the owner, I believe, of a trailer park that was being condemned. Maybe it might have been connected with the river front. I don't recall if it was specifically the same. So I get your concern. I have the concern because I don't even like bringing up the words eminent domain because it is something that makes
and because the average,
yeah.
if you go to their website, urban renewal's not on it.
Yeah.
They talk about their cases in eminent domain, and that's their practice and condemnation. And the average person who may go to their website, if we enter into an agreement with them, is going to look at that, and then it starts that whole conversation, which we're not having.
Yeah.
That's not part of the dialogue here.
And I think the reality is, where are they going to get their clients from? Probably somebody doing a search for eminent domain when their property is condemned. And that's why there's information about it on their website. Whereas advertising urban renewal isn't going to get them a lot of business because, there are only so many cities doing urban renewal that are going to be looking for urban renewal counsel. So I would guess that that's the reason for the emphasis on the website. It's where business comes from and how it's found. But I understand your heart, so.
Joe, point's well taken, but it sounds like, looking at their website, and it lists practice areas, it doesn't say urban renewal, it says eminent domain and water law and water rights, which of course is not anywhere close to what we're doing. If it sounds like urban renewal is a subset of eminent domain, if it was the other way around, they did urban renewal and handled eminent domain as well, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. A couple of things make me uncomfortable. One is the conversation about ramping up. I mean, these are people for conflict of interest resolution, not somebody to ramp up and get in our everyday business. But what really bothers me is these guys are both litigators. They aren't transactional attorneys. We need transactional people to help us get stuff accomplished, not somebody to take us to court. Mr. Ostrander said he's been in practice since '82, maintains a real estate litigation practice focused on condemnation trials, inverse condemnation, urban renewal projects, regulatory takings, and trespass actions. So he's a litigator. Now, if you hire a litigator, you're going to get litigation. We get Rodriguez most of the time, and it says he represents public and private entities, individual property owners, developers, lenders, landlords, tenants, and others in all phases of public and private condemnation hearings. It doesn't say anything about urban renewal. I feel like we're the Broncos looking for a quarterback here. We're just shifting through people, and we finally ended up with these guys, and it's kind of like, well, they'll play, so that's what we'll take. I don't think, once again, that we have to have this right now, and these guys aren't urban renewal experts. So they interviewed well. They sounded great.
They interviewed well, and we had plenty of opportunity to ask them about their transactional experience, and I believe that we did. So anyway, regarding the ramp-up concern, I think there have been, when we look at the application process, when we start asking the question, what are the different things that we can do outside of, sitting back and waiting for a project to come to us from Chang. Those are all areas that I believe we have been kind of putting on hold until we have counsel to ask about that, to bring those questions to. And I don't think that we were speaking to Mr. Kemp on those issues. If I'm mistaken, then let me know. But I thought we were waiting to bring up those issues with this different group of attorneys. So ramp up just means getting to know us, and it means addressing some of these difficult questions we have, like what does a good application process look like? Those are questions that will take time, and very specifically, when I was speaking to them, I said, when I look at all of your rates and I think about different kind of projects we'll send your way, and if you were to do work, then you're going to divide that work among, special counsel, associates, paralegals, and we get the advantage of the blended rate. But because a lot of what we're going to be doing for the first few months, at least that I believe we're going to be doing, I didn't commit to anything. These are the things that we've been talking about. I can see us coming to you with a lot of questions and having you come to meetings where it's really just us engaging you, the partner, and your well of knowledge. And so we're not really going to get the advantage of that blended rate because it's not projects, it's questions we're sending your way. And that's one of the reasons they gave the discount. So getting extra time getting to know us, uncertainties surrounding, whether there be a city attorney to handle governance matters and areas where there's not a conflict or why they gave that rate and why I referred to ramp up. I really disagree with the idea if you hire a litigator, you're going to get litigation. These guys, if you look at their records and if you maybe go back and watch the video of their interviews, have plenty of transactional experience, and sometimes litigators are the ones who are best able to avoid litigation because they've seen things go wrong and see the issues before they arise. So I don't have that same fear. Again, I get it. I get the reason for the heartburn. But these guys have a lot of transactional experience. And again, when you're posting things on a website for the type of people that are typically going to go, it makes sense to emphasize litigation because that's where a lot of the business is and why people come searching for them in a panic and want to see that experience there. So I don't share your concern. I wish we would have brought these things up when they were here and we have these things in front of us. But I'm happy to continue engaging it.
What budget do we have for this kind of thing is part of it. And many cities have their own city attorneys do the urban renewal piece because the city council and the urban renewal board are inseparable. It's the same body. So, you can certainly have one person there except in case of conflict. And unless Columbine Square comes in, I don't see, we're more likely to do something ourselves with the city, which would mean we'd be acting as effectively as one body.
Well,
I think we're way ahead of the curve here. I think this is a way to spend the urban renewal money and put us out of business, and we have people that are very interested in doing that who sit on this board. Well, and I think it's wrong.
I'm not one of those people.
Okay.
Mr. Kemp was very clear that when it came to negotiating the loan agreement, when it came to working on the cooperative agreement, that he would be unable to do that for us. And at least a year ago when we started this conversation, those were things that were coming down the pipeline that there was going to be a conflict about immediately. There were also some, there are times where, I am interested in being a part of urban renewal and building this board with something that the citizens can trust. And part of that, I think, is sometimes going the extra mile to address areas where there is, where we unnecessarily allow for distrust to grow. And when I look at some of the, in my mind, completely unnecessary disputes that have existed around urban renewal in the last few years, and my experience with them is limited, my knowledge of them is limited, I think sometimes they could be avoided by us taking a little bit extra time and getting a little bit of extra input. A simple thing like, for example, we may say that governance is, and I'm rehashing conversations we had a year ago, we may say that governance is not controversial and there can be no conflict of interest, but it is interesting to me that city council does have ways that they want us to govern ourselves. So to me, even though it's typically non-controversial, it would be strange for me to listen to the attorney representing a body that is separate from us, that wants us to do things in a certain way. Now, I may think it's the right way. I may not have a problem with whatever the city council wants to suggest to us tomorrow. I don't anticipate that I will because I don't even know what it is, but I have ideas. I don't think that it's going to be that controversial. And I have opinions about minutes and action minutes, but that's not going to make or break, our ability to get a job done and do well. But we saw, in the beginning of last year, end of 2017, real controversy about what constitutes a quorum and whether or not the board should be meeting or can be meeting, and the board relied on the city attorney's view for that, and that view happened to correspond with what the city council wanted for the board, is my understanding, and I could be wrong again, I wasn't there. But that issue could have been resolved very simply just by asking our own attorney. And he may have said that, yeah, city council's right. And that would have been that. But we would have gone that step and asked that, and it would have been easier, in my view. Again, I don't know all the facts. I just remember reading articles in Littleton Independent.
If I could address that, I mean, part of the problem during that transition was the chair was elected to city council.
Yes.
And that caused, so, with this agreement, the chair is the one who reaches out to
Yes.
the legal. If we would have had a firm at that point in time, and the chair says, I'm not gonna ask this opinion, we still have the same dilemma.
Yeah, oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, but I would have.
That's not true.
Didn't they have
The bylaws,
No.
you would go to the bylaws, and the bylaws are very specific about what constitutes a quorum. In the instance you're talking about, we had a city attorney that was using an old set of bylaws instead of the current set of bylaws, and they read differently. And that's, if we had our own attorney, we would have said, here's the current bylaws, or they would have had them. Tell us if you agree with the city attorney or not. But I think when you talk about the city and live partnering and doing something, it's even more reason for us to have our own attorney. It's back in the 80s when this body was created, it was very deliberate that it would be separate from the city council. And there was a reason for it. Now, if the council doesn't want to have a separate body, they can take care of that. There's a remedy in the law that they can take steps to take care of that. But I think as long as we're separate, we honor what the agreement was back in the very beginning of time, and we recognize that we are separate bodies, and we need our legal representation. The Lift Board has always had legal representation until recently.
If I may.
Talking about two different things, and let me, one quick thought. My first meeting is when this came up, and I became the jerk in the room because I was a new kid debating against something that I hadn't had background on, and it is what it was. But at that point, it was described very much as if we have conflict, we will go to the attorney with specific questions that our chair determines will go to them. And the conversation I'm hearing is that we bring this person on, and that's our legal attorney will be there. I'm getting the feeling we'll be asking him to every meeting. He'll be there for advice whenever we need it. People are expecting that he'll guide our moves, that he's going to be there in a meeting to say, no, you're wrong, city attorney, because X, Y, Z. And I'm getting a very uneasy feeling about the use of that person. If we have somebody we can call up at Kevin's discretion, I'm willing to go along with that. I'm very opposed to having someone who doesn't appear to be qualified in the first place to rely on and just write checks with money that our citizens have paid into the funds.
So if I may, the fail-safe is still Kevin. I mean, it's still,
right. Yes.
Everything that we talked about in that first meeting, unless I'm wrong, is still true, that we only engage them when we ask. They only attend and when I say we, I mean he. He only attends when the chair asks. We take a question to him when the chair agrees. And if there's a question that is still appropriate for the city attorney is our first stop. Unless it's apparent that there's to us immediately that there's a conflict. That's my understanding.
So, there's a couple of things. When this transition happened with the previous chair and then to me, and when all those meetings were canceled, I was not part of the discussion, did not know that there was a discussion about quorum. Because that was never discussed with me. This is the first I've heard of that. And I don't appreciate things that may not be substantiated being brought up.
Do you want the emails? I will give them to you.
I only brought that up as a citizen at the time, viewing this and thinking, I don't know what's right, but
I understand what you're saying.
People distrust the city attorney, so why couldn't Lift just ask somebody else?
I get that.
That's the issue.
I get that. I didn't even know there was an issue. Because I wasn't reading the Littleton Review or whatever, the report back then.
watching the
Not all
video.
that great, you know, but they can be very biased.
I don't remember the source, I mean.
I think they are, I agree. When I talked to them some time ago, when, Columbine Square put forth their proposal, I was very shocked that they quoted me accurately.
That's true with any newspaper.
So, yeah,
So
it does.
the follow-up question, if there are, grave concerns about these attorneys' experience with urban renewal, what qualifies the individual the city has right now more than these individuals with respect to urban renewal?
I'm not saying, I don't know much about the firm that the city has retained in the absence of having a city attorney. And we don't know when they hire a new city attorney what that person's background is going to be or experience they bring to the table.
Okay.
It's just some of the optics with this firm just concern me. Carol?
Couple of concerns. We have an interim attorney, Ken Feldman. We don't know how long it will be before he's trained out for someone else. They are going to do a search for an attorney. I want some consistency for this body. I want somebody who can come in and know who we are, answer our questions. You're talking about ramp up. It's exactly, in my opinion, what it is we need. We've never talked as a body really about what it is that we're supposed to do, what our goals are, and what we can legally do. What does the law say? In the years I've been on this, and the years I've observed this group, never have they talked about the law. And I think it's important that we have an understanding of what the law says. And I believe it should come from an independent attorney advising this body. And the idea of going with Ken Feldman for 1 month or 2 months, or somebody from Ken Feldman's office that comes in because Ken's not available, and then have a city hire somebody else. I think getting our own attorney is the best way for us to actually get started, get on a page to do something. But the fact that we all come here with independent ideas about what this body is to do and what the law says we can do, we don't do anything. And I am not one, and my guess is I am assumed to be someone who wants to spend the money down on an attorney. That's not true. I want an attorney that can help us do what it is we're supposed to do and do it the right way. And frankly, I don't have confidence. We have an opinion from the previous city attorney on how we should run our meetings and how we're bound to follow the city protocols. And we just heard from Kevin tonight that the council recognizes that we don't have to do that. So somebody has to look out for our best interests, and somebody that we have to have confidence in. And I frankly don't have confidence that Mr. Feldman will come in and have the kind of background we need for urban renewal to do what we need to do. And the guys that we interviewed, they're qualified. I'm getting the feeling that there probably isn't an attorney out there that will satisfy this group. And
I agree with you on the point, Carol, we haven't done anything. I've been on this board a year today, or a year this month. We've talked about attorneys, applications, and minutes. That's all we've done.
Yeah.
We had one lady that Kevin brought in from another urban renewal authority that helped us, it was an introductory lesson, our opportunities. I'd love to see us go to that stuff, and I think we need to move that direction. We need to figure out how to accomplish the task we're charged with by the city, and we've been stuck in an administrative circle to wrap those together. But on your point about not trusting the city attorney is really a filter. And the city's a big organization, so the city attorney has it's not when I was on council, they would give us an update on the legal issues the city was facing at any one time. And it's a lot of them. And the city attorney doesn't handle all those. The city attorney says, well, this issue relates to, pick a number, HR or trespass, or it may be speeding, or it may be bomb threats, whatever it is, and they pick from their roster of qualified people, attorneys to address that issue. And that same thing will be available to us if we need someone, if we ask an urban renewal question, Mr. Feldman, and he doesn't feel that he has the answer, you have to rely on his ethics to say, gee, that's a little bit outside my bandwidth, I'm going to call, an attorney who specializes in it. And I saw work when I was on council and also on historic preservation, and it worked great. And you got somebody who was nuanced in the specific issue at that time.
Are you suggesting that the city's going to open up their legal stable to this body and pay for it? Are they going to pay for litigation if we get called into court because of a decision that we got to because of the city's attorney led us down that path?
Not at all. I'm no more than if we get led down the path by any other attorney. I think litigation is probably independent of who we have represented against.
It wasn't that way with the lawsuit that was brought by Arapahoe County.
And that had more to do with the city manager than it did with the attorney.
Yeah, the city covered all those expenses, which was a good thing, but.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see where the relevance, where this is going.
May I
Jack,
put in my 3 cents?
Yes, please put in your nickel.
Okay, well, it's sort of be 3 cents, and I have 3 points. Number one, I just want to express my frustration. We have been plodding along at the speed of government, trying to get counsel for this board. I see nothing wrong with the firm of Pomeroy, Rodriguez, Ostrander, and Ninjas. We interviewed them. Now, out of deference and respect to the 2 attorneys in the room, attorneys do not generally give me warm fuzzies. Because I generally deal with.
For the record, I married an attorney, so.
Adversarial. But however, they gave me a sense that they knew what they were doing. And sure, we've got eminent domain issues, but part of those eminent domain issues are understanding how urban renewal works and what you can or can't do. I think Mr. Areno made a great point that litigators tend to know what might be coming up and how you should stay out of trouble. So I don't have any concerns about engaging these people, and the fee agreement is pretty standard. I am glad that Mr. Areno got rid of the binding arbitration, because that I would not have in any agreement, whether the government required it or not. And then the third thing is your suggestion that perhaps the city attorney could provide a gateway for urban renewal legal services. I think that's a conflict of interest. I do not want the city attorney recommending services from one of his buddies or whoever ethically he can suggest. We need to be the ones that control our advisors, our executive director, our recording secretary, and our counsel. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a little bit of tweaking what we've talked about. This fee agreement is good. The dollar amounts they're talking about and getting it knocked off, like, 10%? No, not 10%, it'd be 7.5%. The fee is a good deal. I think we're fine. And part of my frustration comes from doing this application agreement. As we sat as a subcommittee working on that, questions came up. So I'll be bombarding you as they come up again, that we could have access to the attorney and start spending the money. Getting the information we need in order to do our job and present a good package to this board for consideration. There you go. My 3 cents.
Cindy, any thoughts?
Well, I kind of have heartburn, but it's in another issue, and that is, that we're talking about an attorney right now that we've talked about, getting on board, which I agree with. But I'm concerned about how, we get the attorney on board, and I'm concerned with all the questions that we have, and this group has, and we keep running them through Kevin. And, there seems to me like we need to have some sort of an idea of exactly what we need them to do before we actually bring them on. I mean, because I can just see this group bombarding us, having all these questions. And which questions do we really need to have somebody who's going to charge us for? I mean, we need to, I guess we're going to have those discussions when we have the attorney on board. But I don't want to be just bombarding this person, this attorney that we're paying for, with questions. I think we need to have some kind of a way that we say, okay, these are imminent questions that we need to have now. These are questions that can wait because we don't even have a project. That kind of thing. So that's kind of the heartburn I'm having in this whole discussion is I'm hearing us saying, we need an attorney to do this and this and this and this. And I think we need to be a lot more strategic about how we use the attorney.
I think you raise a good point, and if we do, enter an agreement with them before we have any discussions with them, we're going to have a study session where we sit down and we say, what are our questions? What are valid questions that we ask them that we're paying them $325 an hour to answer? And then maybe we formulate them all, we give them to ahead of time, so that they're not spent, sorry, I'm terrible on names, so Mr. Rodriguez doesn't sit here for 2 hours with us as we bombard him with questions, and, they're just, some of them may be off the cuff, some of them may not be relevant or whatever, he writes them all down, he goes back to his office, he researches them, comes back. I think we need to be more strategic, more planning, where we say, these are the 5 or 10 or 12 questions that we do need answers. And to be fair to him and be conscious of his time, our fiscal resources that we have, that we send them to ahead of time, so that, it may be appropriate that some of the other questions he can give to someone else in the firm to do the research on those questions. So it is less. He just goes over and makes sure they're right, so he's not spending 10 hours researching it. Then comes back and meets with us, and then answers our questions, which will probably generate some follow-up questions that he may be, and he may be very concise with a written up thing where you get a chance to review it. We may have, I just think we do need to be efficient with our time, with his time and our resources.
I think that
The other heartburn I have is understanding exactly what, and I know Ken Feldman and his firm. I mean, I've dealt with them on other issues before, but it is fully understand exactly what the city attorney can do and what we need to send over to our attorney. I mean, I think we all need to have an understanding of that line, so that we're not sending things over to the attorney that Lyft is paying for, that somebody that they could do with the city attorney, no matter how long they keep the Feldman, firm on board or whatever. I can't imagine it's going to be like, it's going to be a while, because they're going to have to have some kind of time with the city attorney. So that's the other concern I have is, I don't know if we have a real strong understanding of the exact, when we get into a project, then we have a real understanding. Right now, I don't know if we have an understanding of what the city attorney maybe could handle for us, and we don't need to be paying this attorney for it.
So I think that before, we can really have a good idea of what questions are bringing, just like you said, and what I'm really hopeful that this kind of starts to come out of our meeting tomorrow, is identifying what are our priorities. And to understand our priorities, we have to understand what are our goals. And for better, maybe some people don't like this, but I'd probably look to city council for that a little more than us. Like what is the vision for urban renewal? Because they're the elected officials and they're the ones who have appointed us and we're tasked with it. So I'm largely looking to city council to say, hey, what's your task? What's your vision? Because I need to know what they want from us because we need to have their support for whatever our path is. And then once that is in place, then we can prioritize to that end, whether it's solidifying the application process or asking various other questions that exist. So I'm hopeful that comes a little bit out of the meeting tomorrow, a better idea of what our goals and priorities are so that we can establish these things.
And Joe, what you say makes a lot of sense, and you too, Cindy and I, I think part of my frustration, I'm sitting here trying to think why this bothers me so much, but in anything you do, you decide what you're going to do, you set a goal, you kind of formulate steps toward a goal, and as you get further down the road, let's say you're buying a house or you're building a business or whatever, you bring in an attorney later on, once you've defined your goals and your objectives tightly enough that you know the questions to ask. I don't want to be bombarding, was the word, that was bomb cyclone, I guess, but bombarding an attorney with questions about things that we aren't going to have happen. Asking them questions about Columbine Square. I think the chance of that happening is remote. I'd rather have us define our goals, like you said, Joe, and get clarity on what we can and what we want to do, and then we can use an attorney to help us sculpt the legal aspects of that, because they're really there to help us keep out of trouble and to make sure that we do it in a legally proper way. I mean, they're not decision makers on the business side, they're advisors on the legal side, if I can, say that.
But I am comfortable with in the short term, before we have that vision, with Kevin as the gatekeeper for those sorts of things. Because we don't know when the need will arise. We don't know what the situation is going to be with the city attorney. We want some level of continuity. So I don't see anything that we're saying right now as a reason that we can't engage the relationship and use it as needs come up in the board's judgment through Kevin.
And there's no retainer, just so that we're
There's no
clear.
retainer.
So in other words, we
That's a
engage
good
them,
thing.
and we engage them, and we might literally decide not to actually use them. I'm not saying this would be the case, but for months, But the fear we had expressed before was, hey, what if something comes up right away and we don't have anybody right now? Which is why we started the search. But I mean, everything you're saying is completely reasonable. I mean, it's not
Carol.
The idea of bombarding an attorney, if we bring someone on in the very beginning with just questions, I don't think makes a lot of sense. What I think makes sense is that we, beforehand, have a study session and kind of narrow down the subject matter that we want to get some good advice on, and send the documents over to them if there are documents, and say, we'd like to have a study session with you. Here's some of our concerns as we've discussed this. Come in and help us put the puzzle together. We have an urban renewal plan. That's another document we've never read. But that should be guiding us, and we've never pulled it out and looked at it. And part of the reason why we are in the situation we're in is because council didn't understand the urban renewal law either. And they had legal counsel. So we're just between a rock and a hard place, not of our own doing, but because we have a plan that doesn't have a project in it, and we're not sure how to proceed. And frankly, I don't think council knows how to proceed. And we've not talked about, the financing of all of this and what steps have to be taken. To me, we need to see how all the pieces fit together, and then have a discussion about what council might determine to be our priority. Council could say this is what they want us to do, but it may not be something that we can do.
Yeah.
And I want someone to help us.
And that's a fair question to ask that firm. I mean, if council says, one of the things I've discussed is the matching grant thing, and they say, hey, we think that's a great idea, pursue it. then that's a question we say, can we do it within this?
Yeah.
And what are the mechanisms within setting that up to keep us out of trouble? You know, what is, you know, and I think that's a valid question, if that's the focus that we're going on, because, you know, I think, you know, since when the first year I was on the board, I think a lot of us were all new to the board and just trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing? What is going on? I mean, because there was a lot of controversy with the other 3 areas being repealed and everybody leaving and so forth. It was just like, okay, what do we do now? And everybody focused on somebody coming in, a developer coming in with a plan. And it's clear to me, you know, my opinion is that, you know, the owners of Columbine Square really don't have a clue what they're doing, or how they're going to do it, or how to get there. I mean,
And they don't want urban renewal to do it, whatever it is, they've said.
And they've changed their mind.
And they're changed their mind on
That's
that.
right, 4 years ago, they were,
Hey, we can hear something else
Yeah.
next week. But the reality, just because they don't have the zoning for what they're proposing today. They're not going to, even if they could get, you know, whether or not they can get that zoning is questionable. Whether they can get it in the next 12 months is even more questionable. So where does that leave us when there's only going to be 19 years and 6 months left on this urban renewal?
Yeah.
And that's why I started saying, okay, we got to stop talking about that group and what other things do we pursue that we can do to move the needle on this?
And I think that's exactly what we need to do.
Right.
And so this opens the door for a better example than the quorum thing I brought up earlier. You know, for example, that we do want to go with this matching grant program, and there are funds coming from different things, and there is a view that would be illegal, and that I don't know the answer to that question, and it may not be a conflict of interest for the attorney for the city to advise. It may be, but that question aside, for the sake of building trust and confidence and building and getting people on board in the community, I'd rather also ask our own attorney who isn't reporting to city council. And it's an optics thing as well.
No, I don't disagree with that, necessarily. Again, my whole thing is that if there's a procedural thing that we have to deal with, you know, I don't want to go to our own attorney where there's clearly not a conflict of interest. You know, whether it's where things get posted. Let's say, that was a discussion tonight, you know, what are our legal requirements to meet that? Or we were supposed to have, and it didn't happen, you know, a primer in a study session regarding open meetings and what we should be aware of in that. I think the city attorney can handle that because that's part of their day-to-day governance for the whole city.
Probably better qualified.
Right, yeah, so I don't see that being a conflict, and as long as we're all clear on that, where the optics are very clear, the city attorney can advise us on the Open Meetings Act and what are requirements and what we should be concerned with. But, like to your point, whether or not we can go into a cooperative agreement with them regarding streetscapes. What does that look like? Or you know, that may be okay, maybe we should talk to our own, somebody separate to say, can we do this? What are the issues around this? Or the matching grant situation, or anything else that may be suggested at tomorrow's meeting. You know, I don't know all the, you know, the three or four areas I know, you know, the 3 areas I know is either you partner with the developer and you work out a urban renewal through that. You do matching grants, or you partner with the city to do infrastructure improvements to the property, whether that's streetscapes, streeting, sewage, you know, electrical, whatever.
No, it's
Streets.
very different.
And they're, you know, and those are 3 different avenues. I think one's not going to happen, you know, unless something drastically changes tomorrow. The other 2 are possibilities. Again, what does that look like? But city council may know something else and they may suggest something tomorrow. I have no idea. We'll see.
So what do we do?
We have edits
We have edits.
that Joe's taking back.
Yep.
So we wouldn't vote on this tonight.
No, we're not in session.
Study session.
This is a study session. And that's why we put it, so we could have a discussion about what do we need to have in this that's missing. And I think we talked about a few things. Yes.
Clarify. Page 3 of 5, talks about additional charges. It doesn't say whether they're going to be charged a fee on top of that, plus 5%. I don't see that spelled out. I assume it's at par. May I assume that?
I'm sorry, so additional charges included.
Which paragraph?
The
Top paragraph.
top one. So are they doing any kind of a markup if they send something out to be printed? If they ship something? Are they adding a 5%? I mean, that's customary with a lot of places. Where they do
Expenses at cost.
Is it?
I see what you're saying.
The other thing, Joe, that I don't see in here, maybe I missed it, do they charge portal to portal or for meeting time?
Sorry, say again.
They charge portal to portal, do they charge from the time they leave their office?
I will
until
get
they-
that added in there. He said that he wouldn't charge for coming to this meeting, but that if we had him going to other things, then there might be a charge incurred. So I'll get that in there.
So if, just to clarify, if he comes here, his time starts when the meeting starts, but if we all get in a car and go over to the urban renewal area to look at it, he's going to charge for that time.
Right.
So that, and that's fine.
Right, I'll get it.
Yeah, but
I think what I would probably say is for any regular meeting, at least, or
Regular
Yeah.
special meetings?
regular special meetings.
just wary of him buying a new car and taking C470 all the way.
Okay, but since we got off track, but what I was gonna clarify, so there's the one that was just brought up, the,
Additional charges.
thank you.
Cost.
And then clarifying,
That's a store.
then if Richard Rodriguez was unavailable or something changed there, that we find the next person by mutual agreement.
Yes. Yeah.
And then what did we say about, do we want to remove identifying Kevin Seiler? Oh, no, it was in his absence or inability.
Currently did the work there, but we were wanting something saying mutual agreement if they want to swap out these names. I don't know what the language is, but just so that it lives.
And then I'm on to the person designated to act as the chairperson, or in his or her absence, the vice chairperson.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a case, let's say, something happens to me and I'm not able to attend meetings because I'm hospitalized, whatever. I'm still on the board, I intend to be back, but there may be a right reason why I can't be here.
Yeah.
Then I think it should go to because then the vice chair then picks up those responsibilities in my absence anyways. It's, according to our bylaws, I think it should just be kind of reaffirmed in there.
Okay, got it. But if Kevin says no, you can't go to Cindy and try and get it yes.
And I will do whatever I want.
I'll send these back and I'll let him know it could be at least another month.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so next on the agenda are the bylaws. So, in looking at this, what was provided in the binder is not accurate.
No, there were two bylaws that were in the binder. The first one was provided by the city, and it was not current. And when that was discovered, a newer version was provided, and it was dated, I believe, June 6th, or June of 2017 is the most recent update.
June 2nd, 2017. No, excuse me, that's the cooperative agreement.
I don't see a date.
This is the version is, and it looks to me like the version that you, I'll be able to tell real quick here.
Cooperative.
My version from June has the date at the very end of it, approved June 2017, which is missing from this document, which makes me wonder if this is.
Well, the one that I sent out, I did. I converted it from the PDF to Word,
Okay.
and then put in the stuff that was missing. I pulled the PDF off the website. That's what I started with what was on the website. And because that didn't line up with that I was provided a year or so ago in this binder. So there's several different versions, and I'm trying to get it to where we get one that's right, and we all, I'm trying to, because what I'm also trying to do, I'm trying to get because there doesn't seem to be consistency on some of our documents, and I'm just trying to get all that together and make it cleaned up so it's in one place. You know, so that's what I gave you is what I pulled off the website, converted it back from the PDF to a Word, and then went through and added stuff that was missing. Because what is missing on the one on the website is the whole agenda section. For somehow that did not, I don't know if it was scanned improperly or what.
So another way to put this is your proposal for new bylaws, for fresh bylaws.
To clean it up, because again, like that was missing, and then like the one that's here in my binder, which is what was given to me, you know, I think it was handed out a year or so ago, you know, it says our meetings are at 7 o'clock. That's not correct. So I just thought, okay, let's just start and get this right.
And this one is different from the June 2017. I don't know that it's material for the discussion tonight.
Okay.
Kevin.
All right. So I don't know how this happened, but I apologize. Somehow I had the number lines. I think that's when we go through the document, it makes it easier to, you know, say, okay, page 2, line 33. I'm sorry that didn't come out in this printing. So I didn't change. Again, this is going from the version that's on our website. Didn't change anything on that page 1. Page 2. I did not change anything there.
Yes, you did.
I did where?
Section 5, you said the authority may appoint an executive director. The other bylaw says shall. Section 6, the authority may appoint an attorney. It says shall in the bylaws I have.
I think the bylaws that were printed says shall, but the bylaws that were online said may.
May.
Okay.
It was changed, again,
And the May is in
so
the
you were
June
right.
2017.
Which is the most-
Remember making that
Right.
change.
May is in June.
So what do we want? I mean, if we have the power to argue what we want, do we want it to be may or shall?
I think it should be May. I think, you know, I think that was changed 3 years ago.
Okay.
Because there wasn't anything going on, and there was, you know, controversy with the last executive director, and yada, 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 so.
And the good thing is, as we go through this conversation, you know, Carol has some other versions, older versions, and we can just simply debate, hey, what do we want? And we'll come up with a golden standard now. And,
Right, like I said, it just like, I'm just trying to clean up some of the confusion.
yeah, no objection.
All right, so in the meetings, under Article 3.
Hold it a second.
Okay.
Can we go back to section
Sure,
12?
sure. Section which one?
Section 12.
Yes.
In Article 2, talks about an auditor. An independent audit should be made of all accounts at least annually and more frequently if deemed necessary by the authority. However, a cooperative agreement with the city states that the city will apply for an exemption to an audit. How do we deal with that?
We've used a waiver in the past. We've not been audited.
We were audited.
No, we get audited by the city government, or the auditor that comes in for the city, and they have a page in their auditing report that our budget is included, but it's not audited, and we have waived the audit because the law allows you, under a certain dollar amount, you can waive the audit. And I think that was a $900 charge. at the time.
Yeah, the Single Audit Act allows that, so.
But I think it's just good practice to have an audit at least every other year.
It's interesting, because, you know, you get these things from these exhaustive documents from the auditors, and LIFT is in that. Now, it doesn't say anything about a waiver on it. I
No, it's
always
just a
assumed it would have
page.
been audited.
Uh,
It said, I mean, this is something I got from the city manager or something else, but they talk about that it was included in the city of Littleton's audit, 2017 audit.
We have a page in the book, and I talked to the auditor to ask them, do they really audit? Because nobody ever came to the meetings. And he said, it's just a page in there, they have not audited. So it's just included in the city's audit. And then we paid for a waiver to the audit requirement that we have under law. But because we don't collect a lot of money, we could apply for that waiver, that exemption, which is what we did.
So, you know, since we're not dealing with big money, I would like to have the option somewhere in there that we apply for that, you know, through the city, apply for an exemption. You know, if we would need an annual audit if we had bonds outstanding. As long as we don't have debt, we don't need this, in my opinion, okay? And that's just from a business standpoint.
Let's see what the
Jack,
law says.
your point's well taken, but I wonder, Joe used the word optics and building trust and all that. I wonder if the city's doing an audit. I can't imagine it costs much more to audit our feeble little set of books. I wonder from an optics standpoint, we ought to go through the exercise. It's certainly not a part of it. And it seems to me that the city, that LIFT was audited. It was represented as having been audited when I was on council. So I think we ought to get clarity.
Let's get clarity on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me find out where, because according to what I received today, we were audited as part of the city's audit in 17.
Uh-huh.
In what year?
17.
And we wouldn't have had the 18 audit yet.
Correct.
But if we didn't have any big major transactions, they never tested any, we would be part of that audit, but because it was so small, we don't need to be part of the testing, which is what costs the money.
I was going to say that the audit was a whole lot more expensive than just having the waiver.
Yeah.
The waiver surprised me at the expense of that in and of itself, because it wasn't
But,
cheap.
you know, we get a financial report every month, and we look it over, and our transactions are so minuscule.
Yeah.
But if you look at one transaction from a CPA and an audit, it's very expensive.
Okay.
I'll find the part of the law. And it may
Let's
actually-
clarify that. That's easy to clarify.
Yeah. So are you recommending any changes in section 12 at this point then?
I don't have any specifically, but if you want me to send you something by email, I will be happy to do so.
Jack, when you put something together, I'll find where it is that grants us a waiver. Maybe we say that we shall have an audit if we don't meet the requirements for a waiver, or at least every 2 years or something like that.
Or maybe it's a dollar amount, you know.
It is, you have to, you either spend or collect more than $500,000 in a year, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed us to waive it the last time.
But if you look at the cooperative agreements, Exhibit A, Scope of Services, number 11, talks about file an application for exemption from audit.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get consistent.
And the
Okay.
city did that for us because you're not capable of doing it.
Okay. Under Article 3, I updated the time just from 7 to 6:30. Didn't change anything else.
Good question. Section 2.
Okay, hang on a second. Section 2, go ahead.
About 7 lines down, it says notice of that meeting unless the member's written objection. May the written objection be in the form of an email. That's all I want to know. 'Cause that's,
How does the sentence begin?
Any member may waive notice. I mean,
Oh, there we go, anyway.
to me, email is written. I mean.
yeah, I agree. But sometimes electronic stuff is not.
No, I agree. I don't know the answer to that.
Because I would like to see it explicit that emails
Are acceptable.
are accepted.
Well, you could do that by saying, including by electronic communication, electronic.
Yeah, fax or email.
Okay, so
So we're talking about, right below the 246401, the next sentence,
Yeah.
member may waive notice of any meeting, blah, 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 blah. Where was it?
unless the member's written
Written
objection.
objection, yeah, written, so objection, comma, by letter, fax, or email, I suppose.
By letter
Comma, fax,
Fax.
comma, or email.
or email. And then we continue to the transaction of any business at the meeting is filed with the recording secretary.
Yeah, put a comma after email.
Yep.
Okay.
Section 1,
Yes.
at the end of the sentence, it says, as posted on the meeting board at the City Littleton Administration Building and posted on the Lyft website. Might as well go ahead and put library in there. We are saying we're going to post it, our notices in the library, city building, Lyft website.
Where was that stuff we were doing earlier?
Well, do we just want to say instead of listing it all out, just say per the annual?
Yes.
Yes.
Then you
Keep
might
it in
go
one
back and
place.
look at it, and to find out what that is. It's better if we put the words in the document, so we
Right,
don't have to go
but
back.
then
But
if
then
we
we-
ever change the
if it-
resolution,
yeah,
we
yeah.
have to change the bylaws.
Right.
Hates
I
conflict.
don't think we need.
I know that, yeah.
Hates conflict, yeah.
Yeah, I think we reference what we do annually, because if that changes, and the board changes, they say, okay, I want to post it at 20 places, then you have to go back and amend this.
Okay, as long as somebody's going to go back and look when we cancel and know where it is we need to post. I'll guarantee you it won't be done the way it's supposed to be
Well,
done.
I also guarantee that if we ever change the resolution, we probably wouldn't change the bylaws.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
We should.
Okay, so
Well,
then
you
that
might
would
do
say,
that.
So it won't
Sometimes.
change either.
let me get the, so what it'll say instead,
Certainly if we have a meeting that was canceled, we would take some steps to put it on the website, even if it doesn't say so in the bylaws. Correct?
no, we haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that tonight where there were several meetings, but,
Yeah.
okay. So, posted per, so instead of posting on the meeting board at the city, that'll all get posted per, the
Posted on the locations determined.
posted, determined by, annual.
Resolution
annual-
taken to comply with the open meetings law.
Yeah, annual resolution to comply with Colorado Open Meetings Act or law?
Law. Well,
Is it an act or law?
well,
An act
it's
made the
probably
law.
an act of the law.
Act, okay, act, period.
Mexico paid for it, yeah.
Well, we call it the open meetings law, but
Open
the meetings law. No, we'll just, meetings law, I'll even do that. I'll just recite that right there, pursuant, blah, that takes care of that.
Good.
All right. So okay, we talked about section 2.
I've got another question about section 2.
Yes, sir.
My concern. I guess if we have a special meeting and you want to expand the agenda from what was done, we need the unanimous consent of members present. I'm just wondering why we wouldn't need the consent of all appointed members. Because that's changing something, because you could have 4 people sitting at this special meeting, call it a quorum, and it may not be appropriate. You might have some strong objections for people not present.
I would suggest we cut the sentence off after the word notice, and then we eliminate the possibility of any additional business being transacted at a special meeting.
And I think Carol's got a point, because what we wanted, part of the whole reason for this is to include the public in the process. And if you start adding on in a meeting, you know, there are, you have to have exception. I mean, what if somebody just shot somebody and you want to fire them, you know? You know, and I don't know it's an absurd, they could find a way. We don't have any employees, but that's an absurd example. But are there emergency things and that may come up? I mean, I looked at the lawyers in the room, maybe there's some wording, except in cases of dire emergency or something. Is that even appropriate, or is it not something to worry about?
I mean, because all you gotta do is give 24-hour notice. And just thinking of the practical part of trying to get to get a quorum on a special meeting. Let's say you're not gonna do it in less than 24 hours. You're usually gonna do it in more than 24 hours because just
people aren't available.
People aren't available.
Yeah.
You know, I could sit in a special meeting by myself, but it won't get it. So are we saying now that we just put a period at the comma after notice, and then additional business doesn't get,
Transaction.
it just comes up in a different session?
That would be my preference.
That's fine.
I agree. I think 24 hours takes care of the emergency situation too.
Yeah, so okay, then there'll be a period there. All right. Anything else on section 2? Okay. Section 3, quorum. Did not even, I didn't do anything there.
I just want to know, what does it mean? I'm sorry, I'm not smart enough to interpret this.
Yeah, it's pretty legalese, isn't it?
So I would ask the people to give me warm fuzzies across the room to tell me what it means.
I don't know what it means to adjourn from time to time until a quorum is. Well,
See, I think there's something wrong with their language.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that.
I think, but a smaller number may meet from time to time until a quorum is in attendance.
I'm sorry, which part of it?
but it says adjourn.
Section 3, section 3.
Could that have something to
Meaning
do?
they don't meet from time to time.
Yeah.
In other words, they don't have the meeting.
If you don't have a quorum, you don't have a meeting.
Right. And that's what it means.
When it says a smaller number may adjourn, it tells me that you started out with a quorum and somebody left.
Or you didn't have a quorum.
But, yeah.
But you can't adjourn something you don't have a
Well,
quorum.
You know,
Yeah.
you could probably, boy. So what we want to say is,
Or if somebody's got to go out.
You don't have a
and
meeting
take care
with-
of business and then come back, so you can adjourn.
Oh, I see.
While they do something and come back. Should we strike it?
action may be taken by authority on an affirmative vote of the majority of the commissioners present. That's interesting.
Who wrote this?
So that's why I don't know.
This
what it means.
is why I wanted to go through this to make sure we all
Can
agree.
I ask a really stupid question because I can't find something? Where is the number of, I apologize, but where's
No.
the number of commissioners described in here? Is it?
Because the council controls that.
Okay, all right.
Well, it's described in statute.
Okay.
And the statute says 10 or the number of members in council. So that's why we're at
If it's a
7.
council,
when
if
this
it's a council-formed urban renewal authority, that's what that references to. The law says this authority shall be town. And then 13, just like Linda put up on the screen for us tonight.
Yeah.
13 counting the,
Well, that's for
The
new,
different
that's for the new, after that law change. We're not subject to that with the other.
But, okay,
And
first
there's a
sentence is
question about
fine.
that.
The powers that are issued by vested in the commissioner thereof in the office from time to time. Okay. Majority of the commissioners shall constitute a quorum for the purpose of conducting business. Fine. An exercising his powers for all other purposes. Fine. A small number may adjourn. This is the weird part where a smaller number may adjourn from time to time until a quorum is in attendance. I think that you may be right, Carol, that what that means is if the members are gathered and then somebody needs to run and put out a fire, then we adjourn until that member comes back. And then there's a comma, and it says, action may be taken by the authority upon an affirmative vote of the majority of the commissioners present. And I think that's about a different situation from, but a smaller number may adjourn from time to time.
Can we strike the language in between the two commas and get where we want to go?
I would say that, but then I also wouldn't mind you asking the interim city attorney if he can think of situations in his experience where that.
Why that language is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, we can do that.
It's a good call. The attorney says, ask an attorney.
Yeah.
Definitely a bias.
At University of Phoenix stuff comes in handy.
Okay, order of business. So this, again, it wasn't in, it was on the, website, and,
It wasn't.
no, it's not, that's what's missing.
And what's in the June document, there's 15 items
So,
in the June document.
I kind of just looked at what we had before, the document that was given, I'm not sure what year document this is. Kind of looked at that, kind of looked what the other council and the other boards are doing, and just went through that. So just going through this, one of the things I want to point out to you and kind of spell it out here is one of the things that's been asked from the city is, especially at this point, we're not conducting a lot of business, not a lot of transactions. And Tiffany's been having some challenges being here at these meetings, that we would just go to quarterly, where she would be. The reports would be provided monthly. We could still look at them every monthly, but then she would be here quarterly to answer any questions, and we could adopt all those at that time. I think that's a fair enough thing to do. So that's kind of where I got with this, just kind of looking at that, because before it had executive session, we don't do, I don't see that pertaining to us.
No, because what if we were to buy a piece of land? We don't want to negotiate that land piece or have a discussion in public.
No, but I would know that we would just have that announced as a separate session.
Or maybe as new business.
As new,
Yeah. The old has exec sessions. I think it should stay in there.
okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we could put it in there, I'm okay. So that would go after new business?
That's where it was
Okay.
before.
Where is it? It would be number 8.
It would become number 9, 8B.
What about committee reports? Isn't that pretty standard?
Yeah, I guess that, I mean, we can put that in there.
After financial report.
Yep,
And what's going on in financial?
committee reports.
Okay.
It'd just be, if we don't have any committees, then we don't have any reports. If we've had those recently.
Go ahead. In Mr. Kevin's note to us, he said that the second public comment should be in the bylaws.
Can I write what the current bylaws say up on there? And because there's
Sure.
15 of them.
Sure.
And then it might be helpful.
Want to add that?
You know, I struggle with having the two. I think one is sufficient.
We've had a lot of redundancy in a lot of days. We don't even have anybody do the second one, and it's inconsistent with the other boards.
Yeah.
So, where was the executive session thing? It was mentioned a minute ago, and it
So
went off in the ether, I thought.
in earlier versions, executive session came in after new business. If we were to go into executive session, it would be after new business. So I'm putting it back in there.
Okay. So
It would be
normally that would be left off the agenda.
correct.
It's not pertinent for that meeting. We just don't listen.
Correct.
Okay.
And of course, the old version had executive director reports. Since we don't have an executive director, there's no report.
Yeah.
Correct. And I left announcements in there. I figured the announcements would also be the part where I would talk about communications that I've received through the website. That would be the appropriate place to talk about those, unless we want to list it out separately. But I can just put it there and tell you about somebody wants me to buy an exotic car in New Guinea or something. That's the one I've been getting lately, is about buying exotic cars.
You know, it's always a mistake when I stop listening. What?
So one of the things that I've gotten it like 4 or 5 times now, I get it from this gentleman, it's the same person.
Oh, you mean in the inbox?
In the inbox from the website.
I was watching Carol's agenda.
Where is it?
Carol, are those the old ones you're writing now?
The old one. The full 15. So we can kind of vote on our favorites.
The what? No, wait.
I must have deleted it.
Exec section.
Oh, no, here it is. From Ronald Garrettson. That they're adding high-end luxury European cars to our inventory every day. And I could buy a 2018 Ferrari.
So you're saying most of what we get is spam?
Yes.
That's on the lift.
Yeah, it goes to the lift site.
Any email that's published on the web just gets harvested.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wait. I'm just trying to take a look at, never have I been to a board that had that number of things on their agenda.
That's,
Well, we only do the ones that actually has, right? We only do the ones that actually
We
has.
would only, yes, so if we're not going into, I think what we're trying to do here is have in our bylaws that says these are the, and maybe we need to change that shall too, to may, because we're not gonna have executive session every time. We haven't had an executive session since I've been, so that's not gonna be, so we may have, so I think one of the things we should look at section 4 in that first line is that it goes from shall to be may. And then we just, as we develop the agenda for the meeting, if there's not an executive session, I won't put it on there.
Right.
The financial, we'll still get a monthly financial report, but it'll be quarterly from
with her presence.
With her presence. So between we already added 2 things to it, so that gets us up to 12 items. And then we've got
things were already in there.
those were on there. Is there anything on there that Carol wrote on the board that we want to add to the list currently? I mean, we could put the director's meeting monthly account in there, especially if we change it from shall to may. We don't have a director,
Right.
but then we don't have to go back and correct this later if we find that we need to hire one.
Just call it reports. Instead of committee report, director's monthly activity report, just call it reports.
That's good.
Yeah, that works. Reports. Very good.
Who goes first?
The chair will decide that.
A little discretion for the man.
Okay, anything,
I like this, that this is going to be it.
do we need unfinished business? Yes, we got that under still.
Yeah.
New business, exec section, other matters.
Do we need another matter and the comments and reports when we've got new business? Don't those all fit together?
Well, new business will be something planned in my mind, and I'm asking for what other people here. Other matters or comments and reports, what if somebody wants to say, hey, can we move on and learn something? At the next meeting, can I request an agenda item?
Yeah,
Or, hey, I was just in downtown Des Moines and you ought to see what they did. I think it might be a good idea.
Right.
And people can,
I see these two as the same thing.
I do too, Carol. Yeah.
We
Okay,
can get rid of other matters?
I get rid of comments and reports.
Other matters, comments, reports.
comments, reports, or just comments?
Where are we?
So we have reports already.
Okay, but this is,
That's,
this I see is, I went to that little seminar up there on urban renewal and I met Maureen Fair and I'd like to invite her to the group. To me, that fits there rather than
Correct.
here.
correct.
This is,
We just need to get rid of either other matters or comments and reports because those are exempt.
What about board member comments?
okay.
I mean, that's, I have no understand, that may be something,
Our council guest may want to say something.
Well, and actually, this would be a good place for the council if he has anything to share with us.
Yeah,
I think so. I think, I wouldn't mind seeing a placeholder in there where each board member has an opportunity to say, I've got this in my, a lot like city council, they go through, and they may say, I don't have anything this time, or, you know what, I read this article, and I want to share it with you guys, and let's put it on the agenda to discuss.
It's a valuable part of the meeting.
Right, I think it is.
Yeah.
And you can do that very easily as the comment report. Bill, do you have a report? Jack, do you have a
Okay.
report? Okay.
So,
it's covered.
well, just so it doesn't look redundant, is there a way to, on the first reports,
This is like committee reports and executive director, very different. Business reports.
there you go,
This.
business reports,
Okay.
because that defines, it has.
Yeah.
That's a good, yes, thank you, Carol, that's the word we're looking for.
I think if we're going to put this in the bylaws, we might want to take that second public appearance out.
Yes, we only need
And
one.
why not?
Because, I don't know that we need it. I'm not sure why there's two. I've never understood that. But I think that having a public appearance is mostly what most government boards
The reason
So-
there's two is because council had two. And so this body conformed to council and had
do.
two.
They have two now?
And then there was.
No, it was-
No, they don't. They don't now, but they did.
When?
As soon as Phil Cernetic removed the scheduled appearances, there was a situation, he was going to limit the number of people that could address the council to 30 minutes, and if the group exceeded that 30 minutes, then they could speak.
Oh,
at the
they were
end of
going
the
to come
meeting,
back,
and
yeah.
then that's.
We haven't done that. That's
Yeah,
a
well,
different
but
thing.
that's why it's there. But there was another discussion at some point that this body does not meet very often. And because they don't meet, and I think Jeannie's expressed this a couple of times, topics get discussed and then there's a whole month that goes by and public would like to address, if there's anything to address based on what they've heard during that meeting. If we would meet more regularly, then that wouldn't be quite as necessary.
But the historic preservation doesn't meet, they meet once a month too. And the idea is this is a business meeting, and if somebody sees something in the meeting that they want to address, they can send us an email or whatever. No, it's not
Yeah, I would-
TV time.
Another option is to move it to the
second
end.
one out.
Or take the first one out. Because if the question is they want to respond to things that we talked about in here, then, at the end of the meeting might be good.
I don't care where it is, I just,
On the agenda as well, though.
Yeah, but to me, a public appearance is to talk about things not on the agenda. you know, that they want to bring up things that are not on the agenda. You know, I'm with you. I'm like, okay, if we're going to have one, then put it later, you know, so that if there are things in the meeting that then they can talk about that.
Well, but that's something we haven't done though. So the scheduled appearance or the appearance in the beginning of the meeting is when they address anything that's on the agenda. We've not opened up our agenda items to the public to address at the time that we're addressing them. That is a different situation.
But I think what I was saying, and I think also Cindy was going here, is the reason I understood the second one. I didn't know this whole thing about the time limits. I understood the second one was, hey, stuff comes up, the community wants to respond to it live that night. That totally makes sense to me. If we're going to have one, I think that's a good one. Hey, I heard something hot tonight, something that really disturbs me. I'd like to share my disturbance. You know.
Yeah, because when the first one is up there, it's like, we haven't talked about anything yet. And so, you know, it's kind of like, it feels premature because we haven't talked about anything yet, so, you know, what are they going to have to say? But if you keep it later, then we've gone through the whole thing, and then there's things that the public might want to address that we've talked about. So I think that's, if, you know, I would say take it to one, and I'd say have it later in the agenda.
And I would agree with you if we give the public an opportunity to address this board on all of the agenda items, because, you know, right now, we're kind of stalled.
Do you mean we have an agenda item and then they can respond and then?
If,
Oh, no.
yes, they can be
No,
open to the
no,
public.
no.
Well,
No, that's
no,
not a business
That's-
meeting,
Then we need
Carol.
to
That's a
give them-
democratic meeting.
Well, the school board does that all the time.
Well,
we're not the school board.
The
Good for
very
them.
beginning part, though,
So-
if we were engaged in some real business, then the public, and we have real business on the agenda, the public wants to comment about that prior to us making a decision. They want us to consider what it is they have to say.
that's a public hearing.
We don't have public hearings.
Exactly.
Okay, but we make decisions.
Uh-huh.
And so they want to opine on the decision-making. And when we get into a point where we actually are making decisions other than what the agenda's going to look like or what the bylaws are, it becomes more relevant than what we have right now.
But if they know those are coming up, they can comment on in one area. I don't want to, I mean, we serve the public, but I don't want to have so much public input that we lose our continuity as a board. We have to be able to interact as a board. We were appointed to council, and we're there to listen to the public, and they're welcome to contact us at any time.
Well,
But to
then-
have continuous interruption in a meeting,
Well, then
public
the public
comment.
appearance needs to be at the beginning so they have that
I
opportunity
don't care what it
to
is.
engage.
Yeah, they can engage in the beginning or the end or whatever. I just want to keep
Yeah,
it.
we're not talking about a lot
Contained.
of time.
Okay.
That's- I think that it's worth the investment to keep our agenda format the way it is. If we get into a situation where we're actually doing something and we get mired down by it, then maybe we can reconsider.
Yeah.
But I think it just doesn't take that much time. And you talk about, you know, creating trust and openness with the community.
Yeah.
This is just another way.
Well,
to do it.
absolutely. But all the other boards and commissions do it at the beginning, and I think that is an expectation that the public has. And it works well, because then either it can be incorporated in the board's deliberations that night, and we can't add an agenda item during the meeting. But what we could do is at the comments at the end of the meeting say, somebody commented early this evening about item X. That may be worthy of discussion. I'd like to see if there's support to put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And we can consider it that way. But you're right in that the beginning, I think, gives us the right to consider it during the meeting, or to ask for it to be put on the next meeting. Later in the meeting, after we've taken action, it's kind of like, excellent point, I wish I'd thought of that at the time. We don't want to do that. We want to have that comment, the public comment needs to be meaningful.
It does, and a lot of times when we spend time here in
the same thing twice.
Right.
I think it's
Yeah.
repetitive, so,
They can email or call. Yeah.
beginning or end?
Beginning.
Beginning, in that beginning.
Okay.
Beginning?
I don't have a strong opinion on this.
So if we go down to one, then beginning is what I would say.
Okay,
I can't abstain, Jason.
That wasn't an
City
extension,
council
it
says
was a deferral.
is it deferral?
That's why
Okay.
I don't get warm fuzzies.
Anything, okay, so then, is everybody in consensus on, changing in the first line, shall to may?
Yes.
Yes, we're for that.
Okay. Good.
And then, can I suggest a rearrangement of these? We've heard from public before that they would like to see, actually, we've been doing it just the opposite. This is the way the bylaws say we should do. So the public appearance, they have an opportunity, if they want to say something about the minutes, before we actually approve the minutes. We just haven't been doing it that way.
But you know what,
The current
the
bylaws.
minutes are the minutes. I mean, I don't know is the public going to correct the minutes?
We've had, Pam has come before us and thought that her comments were misrepresented, and Norm has. And based on what their comments are, I may choose to amend the minutes to reflect what they say. But right now, what we're doing is we're approving the minutes, and then we hear from the public that they've been misrepresented in the minutes.
So if somebody, obviously in that case, they read the minutes before the meeting.
Right.
Why can't they pick up the city clerk's phone or email council and do it that way? I don't think we need to have a
You can't amend
stage
them.
show. This is not America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
You know.
you can't amend the minutes by going to the city clerk.
You can suggest that they were wrong, and if they're wrong, the city clerk can go back and listen to the tape and get what whoever said correct. I mean, this is not a debate over what was said, it's recording it accurately.
I understand. I'm not gonna go on.
What does city council do? Are they before or after the minutes?
I'm sorry?
The
They're
city council's
early. It's,
early.
I think they approve the minutes first, and then public comment is after.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just like it says here.
And if I don't know that we've decided this, but if we go to action minutes, I think the issue would be moved.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason.
What do you do, with the
It just says the
comments?
subject matter, that citizen X commented about urban
Yeah.
renewal.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Well, this is the way the current bylaws are written, so can we put numbers by this so that, or come up with a numbering system so we know?
So right now, 1 is roll call, 2 is approval of the agenda, 3 is review of approval of minutes, 4 is announcements, 5 is public appearance, 6 is financial report, 7 will be business reports, 8 is unfinished business, 9 is new business, 10 is executive session, 9 is comments, reports, not other matters.
Yeah, you went from 10 to 9.
I mean, 9 to 10 is executive session. I'm
Okay.
writing and reading it and talking at the same time. I can't do that. So 10 is executive session, 11 is comments, reports,
12 adjournment.
and 12 is adjournment.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any issues with the rest of that section?
You took out the banner of voting, because the old bylaws ask hand vote. So is there a reason for that?
That may have also been deleted and I just missed it. So that comes in, so,
What section is that,
yeah, wait
Jack?
a minute. Oh, section 5.
Where do you?
Section, I have it in mind, but maybe it's not on the website.
Okay, that's a difference. So, section 5 was added. There's section 5 in I'll call it my binder version. It says it has manner of voting. The voting on all questions coming before the authority shall be by raising of hands. The chairman will announce the results of voting for the record. All resolutions shall be in writing and signed by the chairman.
We do voice votes.
We do voice.
We do voice, and there's also the possibility occasionally other boards and commissions meet in chambers and you have the little switch.
Right.
So I wonder if we ought to just
I
drop the hand. I don't know, then you wouldn't be voting.
Yeah.
But drop the word hand.
We do voice votes.
do voice votes.
Yeah, so we may as well put in the
Yeah.
bylaws.
And I think if we are relying on video for minutes, then voice votes are important.
So,
But it needs to be stated, maybe roll call vote is the way to do it.
Right.
Oh, well said, yeah.
But for just, all those in favor, aye. The people watching at
no,
home have
I'm
no
okay,
idea.
okay,
Yeah.
so we
roll
want
call.
to, we need to retain section 5, manner of voting. So in that, do we want to just say, all voting on all questions coming before the authority shall be by roll call? Are we okay with that?
So, all questions, does that include to adjourn, or, now, I would say by voice vote, or if or by motion, then for a roll call, somebody could ask for a roll call vote, is what I would suggest.
Okay, okay, shall be by
That article, section 5.
By voice vote.
voice
Article 5.
That way, when something important comes up, we can move.
or by roll call as requested by a board member.
Yeah.
As requested.
If a board member moves from one or requests one.
It's simple as, if one board member wants it, I'm okay, I mean,
That's what we're doing.
are we, everybody okay with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
As requested by a board member. Okay? And then all resolutions shall be in writing and signed by the chairman. That's, okay. So then, on what I gave, then the open meetings becomes section 6. Appearance by telephone or video conference becomes section 7.
We can do that.
I have a hard word with that.
Yeah,
I wonder if we can.
I want that stricken.
I do too.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm not wed to, I mean,
agree, we should get rid of that.
okay, 7's gone. So the new 7, the current 7 becomes notice. Public notice of meeting is just saying that we will provide notice. I mean, it's kind of, is that redundant?
kind of is.
Could we already adjust that in section 3, article 3, section 2? Do we need this? I mean, it doesn't hurt to be redundant, but I mean, is it necessary?
Sometimes it does.
I think it's redundant as well. And it says we're going to be using all communication media of the community may be utilized. I don't even know what that means.
I would strike it because it's redundant with Article
Okay.
3, Section 1.
Section 7 goes away.
We've done that already.
Section 8, agenda materials.
I would include that they are, let me find where this fit, okay. Second line, authority at any meeting shall be provided each member and the public at least one day in advance of such meeting on the LIFT website. It's really what we're doing now.
But that's already spelled out in, not notice, not necessarily the material. Okay.
Posting posts the agenda.
Agenda and all that.
We're not doing that on the website now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
We're not posting the agenda on the website now.
Yeah. That's available on the city website, I think.
So this is to the board.
Yeah, and the materials, I'm worried about if they become voluminous.
Shall be provided each member. This is to us.
We don't have packets on our website?
No.
Not until after the meeting.
Oh, we need to fix that.
Well,
We need to act like we are a body and take responsibility for that. It's great that the city's covering for us right now, but that may not always be the situation.
We don't have what? What do you have?
You mean the extra
So-
documents?
Yeah, I mean, council does it.
I-
They want us to do what they do.
But if there are addendums or last-minute additions to the council packets, They're handed out at the dais. And I don't want
And
to
we
put
have
us
that-
in a position where somebody can say, gee, this is a violation of open meetings or your bylaws because that wasn't provided to the public at the same
Well,
time.
and this says requiring action. Under that scenario, we would not be able to take action because it wasn't within the 24-hour period.
Right,
So,
exactly.
So if we put the information on the website
Mm-hmm.
and anything that comes after, it's not any big deal. It could be available here for the public, but this is just saying that we're going to provide information for the public. I mean, heck, they can look and see the agenda and the materials. Do I want to go to the meeting or do I not want to go to the meeting?
I think they're already posted though.
But not on our website. Our business is our business. It's not the city's business.
We're encumbering our website a lot is what I worry about. You know, this is,
Well, and
we don't have somebody responsible for that. We don't, you know, it gets laborious, and I think maybe we can just put a blanket statement there that says for specific meeting packets, please refer to and give them a link to the city.
Well, you
And
could
then we
do-
only have to put
You
them
could
in
put
one
that on our
place.
website with a link to the city. That would be fine. That's providing the material for them on our website.
Well,
And if that's the way to
provides
do
them a link
it,
to it, yeah.
then
Yeah.
put the link in.
Yeah.
That's
And
easy
in
enough.
that way, we only have to put it in one place, like Joe was saying earlier, because if you have to post it two places independently,
Correct.
you're asking for trouble, because it's just logistically difficult. So if that's answers your question, and I'd be okay with that, but I don't want to have a situation where the entire packet has to be provided to the public, or else we can't act on it. If it's a late minute addendum, you know, and I don't know how council handles that. We just got them at the dais. If there's somebody wrote a letter, and the rule is that if it's in by 5, they will be distributed to council, but it's not posted on the website.
This is regarding action, not the kind of thing you're referring to.
Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
it could be regarding action. It could be regarding something you're going to vote on.
So,
So it's here, available. In fact, the next sentence says copies of the agenda and all related materials shall be available for the public at authority meetings. So
That would
anything,
be.
so that anything that comes in after that 5 o'clock deadline, public gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
No problem.
up until that point in time, just like council does, everything gets posted on the website, so the
Yeah.
public has access to it.
I'm on the same
Are we
page.
in
We're on the
violent
same page.
agreement, Bill?
We're in agreement. I just don't want to have to post it
So-
on the website when it comes in
all right.
at 4:30 in the afternoon.
We're not.
So we're in agreement that we want to post access to the documents on a website.
On our website.
On our website, we'll.
Even if it's a link.
Even if, okay.
Even if it's a link.
Just-
All right,
right.
okay, so I'm gonna make this B, because then B will become C, a separate line item, 'cause it's a separate issue.
Okay.
I mean, it's a separate thing. Give me the language you are proposing.
Actually, I would make it, well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, or unless I'm.
I appreciate the practice and think we should do it, but I hesitate to put practice that specific into the bylaws.
Yeah.
I can see I have some concern there. Because, I mean, okay, if something happens and it's not posted, does that mean we can't act on it?
It could.
That's counterproductive to what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
Meetings law. So whether we say we're
Well,
gonna do it or
yeah,
not,
so
we
post,
can't.
post it versus post it in this particular way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be posted, but if there's some reason it couldn't have made it onto the website, I would
No,
just.
we've already covered where we're gonna post
Right.
the different things.
Right.
What I'm confused about is this is really basically getting agenda and materials to the board members.
To the board. Correct.
Yeah, and it says copies of the agenda and all related material shall be available for the public at the authority meetings. We've already covered where we're gonna post the meetings and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm comfortable with this because it's basically saying
Yep.
the public's gonna get the same documents that we get at the meetings.
Right.
And that's not council practice. And it's not good practice. The public deserves the opportunity to know what the materials are before they show up for a meeting.
And as a general rule, it is up there. Like I say, Carol, my only concern is if somebody writes a material point, and I'll give you an example. When we were discussing marijuana, there was some really good stuff that came in because there was a lot of stuff coming in. There's some really good stuff that came in after the packet was posted on the website. It was available to the public at the meeting, but it wasn't available in the packet. So but we needed to take action because the matter was pressing and it was at hand. And I think, like Joe says, you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you can't take action because something hasn't been posted to the public at a certain point in time.
I think we've got a real misunderstanding here. The agenda has to be posted 24 hours in advance of the meeting. The documents don't necessarily have to be posted. The law says the agenda.
Yeah.
Now, so
That's all.
out of I think a moral obligation to the community, the council, and provides all the documents for a meeting to the public. Whether or not something that comes in after they've been made available comes in or not has no relevance on whether or not they can take action on that agenda item. What drives that is the agenda being posted properly. All I'm saying is the documents should be made available to any public member who's interested enough to go to our website, check to see what we're talking about, and be able to pull down. They may have been able to look at the bylaws and brought some suggestion forward if they were given access to the documents. But to cut them out of the material that supports our meeting is not good government.
No, it isn't. And I'm not proposing that. And I totally agree with you that all that is required, to my knowledge, is the agenda. We post the documents out of courtesy to them. And also, if you're making good decisions, you want them to know how you got to that decision. You want them to see that stuff. And we want input. We're there to represent the public.
So
my only concern is that period between when the documents are posted to the website and the meeting started. If something comes in that's meaningful, and it's not going to change the actionable item, but it may change your thought process,
We should be allowed
we should
to
be
review.
able to see that and act on it. So we don't
I'm not
disagree on
saying
it.
that you have to limit the documents to what's available within 24 hours before the meeting whatsoever.
Okay, I think most of us agree on this. Are we clear? Can we?
I guess what we're lost on is what the language is going to say.
Doesn't have to say anything.
Well, I don't think we have to address it. I agree. It's there by silence.
Okay, so Joe's saying he doesn't think we need to address it. Bill's saying the same. Jack, your opinion?
I don't think we need to address it.
Cindy?
No, we need to address it.
Jason?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Well, you can ask me.
Carol?
I think we can eliminate it.
You want to eliminate all of Section 8?
Yeah, and I'm going back to thinking about why this is in here. And there was a period in time when this board would meet and nothing was available to the public. And the public fussed about it. And so I think this business of copies of agenda and all related materials, I think that came about as a result of the public not happy with the situation.
And that's great background. I think we have.
But so can we just get rid of Section 8?
I think we have consensus to leave it as it is.
I would prefer not, because I like that it says that if I'm going to vote on something, they're going to give it to me 24 hours in advance.
Yeah, that's a nice thought. Let's just move on.
Carol, so you want to remove it? Carol?
Does anybody else want to?
We're fine.
Anybody remove
I
it?
just keep it.
Okay, keep it
But
the way it is.
and we can't add the Lyft website for the location of the document. So if I want to look up something, I can't get it from the Lyft website.
No, I think we're saying we can't put it on the LIFT website. We don't need to say that.
We don't need to say that in this document.
As long as it's going to.
We're saying we're still going to do it as a practice.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
But it doesn't say in here that we're bound to do anything.
Yes.
okay.
I think we're all in agreement that we
we will do every best effort we can to get it up there and share the information. I don't think we want to be handcuffed to something that may come back to haunt us later. Okay, we're in Article 5, miscellaneous. I didn't change anything from the website thing. Does anybody have anything with Section 1? And or Section 2, conflict of interest.
Just that in other sections, commissioner is capitalized.
Okay.
Always wondered about that.
So, and here's a question, do we, so capitalize that, to be consistent, we should say commissioners and not board member. If we're talking about an individual.
Yeah. Yeah, you should generally look for the word board member and
Just change it to commissioner. Commissioner. Because that's what it should be.
Is that what we officially are? What are we officially?
Authority. So within an authority are your commissioners, right? What does it say in the?
Oh, it's in
I defer to the Oxford rule.
the who
It
rule?
doesn't address it at all.
The what rule?
The Oxford rule.
Commissioners,
Go
however,
on to the next section, I'll look it up.
Well, that's the last section.
Oh.
however,
To adjourn.
I do have a comment about the
Commissioner.
language. Yeah, I have a comment
Okay.
about the language. And I grew up learning English the old-fashioned way. However, in modern writing, you probably want to use the pronoun he/she rather than just he, because I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah, sure.
Mrs. Christensen is a he or this
No,
minister.
that's well said, yeah.
No, that's a valid point, and
you
I'll
can
make those.
change.
All right, so then this will be, I will make all those changes, and then we can have that as an agenda item for next time.
Fun.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Well, we got some stuff done.
Great. Thank you all for coming and your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.